My entitled cousin refuses to pay me back after she uninvited me from her birthday trip, even though I didn't do anything wrong. Because right now I'm out $700, and at this point I don't know what to do about this. Here's what happened. Okay, so my cousin and I have been close our entire lives, and honestly, she's more like a sister to me. And for a bit of context, she planned a big milestone birthday trip. She rented a house, invited about 15 people, and it was going to be a whole weekend thing. And honestly, I was so excited. I booked my flight months in advance, and I paid for my share of the house up front because she needed deposits early on to lock it in. Between the flight and the house, I spent close to $700, and none of it was refundable. Well, here's where it gets a bit messy. My cousin has a really complicated relationship with her mom. They go back and forth, not speaking and trying to make it work. She originally didn't want her mom there, but then some family members started pressuring her to invite her, and she eventually caved. Then they pushed her mom to be involved in the planning process, and she caved again. Then they wanted her mom to have a say in the restaurant and the activities, and she kept giving in because she hates confrontation. But you know what? I stayed out of it completely. Every time she vented to me, I told her to do what she wanted and that nobody should be forcing her to include anyone she doesn't want there. Basically, I was fully on her side the entire time. Eventually, she hit a breaking point and snapped. She canceled the entire trip and said she's not doing it anymore. Then she scaled it back to just her and 3 close friends. And guess what? I was not one of them. And when I found this out, I was honestly crushed. I asked her why, and she said she just needed to make it small and that inviting me but not the rest of the family would cause more drama. She said she was sorry, but it was the only way to get everyone off her back. But I said to her, okay, I understand you're stressed out, but I didn't do any of this. I supported you the entire time, and now I'm out $700 for a trip I can't even go on because of something other people did. I then asked if she could at least reimburse me for the non-refundable stuff, since I would not have booked any of it if I knew I was going to be cut. But to that, she said she can't afford it. She told me that I should ask the family members who caused the drama to pay me back, which we both know is never going to happen. So now I just lost $700 and I'm out of the trip. And apparently I'm supposed to just be okay with it, all because she was under pressure. And I get that she was, I really do, but I didn't cause any of it. And also I'm literally the one paying for it. So am I the jerk for being upset and for wanting my money back? Because right now I'm incredibly pissed off. Dude, I would be furious with my cousin if they pulled this on me. Like, are you kidding me right now? You canceled it and kicked me out of the group? Like, bro, I didn't even do anything. I was the person that was like allowing you to vent to me and like listen to your problems. If you actually had a spine for once, none of this would have happened. Like, just go tell your mom to buzz off and leave it at that. Seriously, how obnoxious can you possibly be? If you're having problems with like getting this all set up and you're upset with your mom, don't cancel it and be like, okay, no one can go even if you paid for it. It's only gonna be me and a couple of close friends, and guess what? You are not one of them. Like, dude, what are you doing? That is so toxic and disgusting. And the fact that she doesn't want to pay you back, like, dude, you paid $700. I would be furious with her. I would not let this slide for a second, dude, because at the end of the day, it's clear that she doesn't feel the same way about you as you feel about her. Like, obviously, you're not a close friend or a friend at all. She grouped you up with the rest of the family who's apparently causing her stress, and it's like, dude, you didn't do anything wrong. You literally were there for her, you listened to her vent and all this other crap, only for her to then like throw you under the bus and be like, no, you can't go. If I invite you, then I've got to invite everybody. But it's like, dude, that's not true at all. Like, what a huge logical fallacy. What are we talking about, dude? So yeah, your cousin is an idiot. And in my opinion, I think you have every right to be pissed off because I know for a fact I would be furious about this situation. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled jerk I was dating lied about his age just so he could hook up with me. And now I'm so pissed that I've deleted him off of all of my social media and I'm now ghosting him. But it's kind of left me wondering if maybe I'm overreacting because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's currently going on. I'm a 28-year-old female and I know this guy through a bunch of mutual friends because I met him through a group I play pickleball with. Recently, he hit me up to play and hang out one-on-one. And during that hangout, he asked me how old I was and I told him I recently turned 28. I then asked him how old he was and he said that he turns 29 this year. I then made a comment about how I'm glad he's around the same age as me because I don't like younger men. We then went out on another date that same week and we ended up hooking up. Well, fast forward a few weeks and this past weekend I was at a hangout with our mutual group of friends and I asked one of my mutual friends who has known him longer about him. She was then very shocked when I told her his age and told me that that's not true and that he's actually 25 years old. We were both confused on why he would lie about his age, and when he later showed up to the hangout, I was being very icy because one thing I also told him him during the first hangout is that I hate people that lie about unnecessary things. At the end of the night, as I was leaving the house, he walked out after me asking why I barely talked to him, and I just plainly said, "You lied about your age. Why did you do that?" He then just started stuttering and asked me who said that, and I said to him, "You said you were a 97 baby. Is that true or not?" Well, at that, he just completely went silent. So I just waved my hand to get him to step away from my car door, and I slammed it shut right in front of him. I removed him on all social medias because I really feel like he lied about his age just so I would let my guard down. And of course I made a decision to hook up with him as well, but that definitely would not have happened had I known his age. He called recently, but I didn't answer, and he recently texted me now asking why I removed him on social media and is asking me to talk to him. So am I overreacting if I just ghost him? I really don't see a need to let someone that can easily lie about something like that explain themselves. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, it does kind of seem like this guy lied about his age just so he could hook up with you, and that is super inappropriate. And also, this is such an easy barrier of entry. Like, bro, why are you lying about your age? Just tell the truth and say exactly who you are. There's no reason to act like that. So no, I don't blame you for like cutting him out because this really is like an easy test if you ask me, and there's no reason for him to lie about something so mundane. If you don't want guys that are younger than you, then that honestly is where it should have ended. And the fact that he thought he could get away with this, in my opinion, is especially annoying. Am I the jerk for not moving back in with my dad just because he got a divorce? Because his previous marriage was awful and they treated me like crap pretty much every day. But at this point, I kind of feel guilty from like my extended family and pretty much everybody, and I don't know if I'm making a mistake by sticking it out and staying away from him. Here's what's going on. I'm a 16-year-old female and my mom passed away when I was a baby. When that happened, my aunt on my mom's side stepped in and basically became like a second mom to me. When I was 8 years old, she moved for work, so I went from seeing her every day to her flying out to me about 1 or 2 times a month, plus 1 week for spring break, winter break, and 50-50 over the summer. When I was 12 years old, my dad married someone who I will call Judy, and they kept saying that she was my new mom, and that I didn't need to keep visiting my aunt because I have Judy now. He also gave my room to Judy's kids since it was bigger, and I refused to share. And I told my aunt that they decided I couldn't fly alone, so she either had to fly out to get me or drive all the way there and back. Well, I decided to stay with my aunt a few months after my dad married Judy because it was pretty obvious that he cared about his new family way more than me. Well, my dad and Judy are getting divorced now because Judy cheated on him, and he found out that their new kids weren't his. He then called me and asked me to move back home because he misses me and he doesn't have any family left. But I said no because I like it here. My aunt is a way better parent than my dad ever was, and she's been dating this guy that comes over on weekends and makes us the best burgers and steaks, and he fixes cars up as a hobby and a side job, so he's working on one for me. I also really like my school and I have friends here. Plus, we're really close to a lot of good colleges, so I probably won't even have to move out for college itself. My dad and his side of the family are upset that I won't move back because they say, well, he's your dad. He really needs you. But seriously, he's the one that chose this new family over me, and them getting divorced isn't my problem to solve. I don't really plan to change my mind, but I want to know if me refusing to move back makes me a jerk at all. Because right now, my plans are kind of up in the air and I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake. Okay, honestly, I think you're making the right choice by living with your aunt, just like from my perspective, because it doesn't sound like dad or Judy took your life into consideration at all. They kicked you out of your own room, they essentially made it almost impossible to visit your aunt, and they really made your life quite miserable for next to no reason. But also, if you think about it logistically, there's a bunch of colleges close by, and if you could live at home and also go to a good college, like, dude, why not just go for it? So no, you're not the jerk for choosing to stick around and stay back with your aunt, because from the sounds of it, I think that might be the better option. Am I the jerk for not forcing my child to apologize when they literally didn't do anything wrong? Because right now there's a lot of angry parents and an angry principal that my son is not being required to apologize to a blatant school bully. And right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things off, my son is 11 years old. He's quiet, thoughtful, and not confrontational. Last week at school, another kid kept teasing him about his haircut. It was just some dumb middle school stuff, and my son just ignored it for several days. Eventually, the other kid escalated and tried to grab his backpack during recess. My son then pulled it back and told him to stop it. The kid lost his balance and fell, and honestly, it was nothing serious. Just scraped his palms and maybe hurt his pride just a little bit. The other boy then went home and told his parents that my son pushed him on purpose. I then get a call from the school asking me to come in. When I arrived, the principal and the other parents were there. The other boy had a small bandage and looked dramatic about it, and his parents were angry. They said my son assaulted their child. My son then explained calmly what happened. He said he didn't push first, he just pulled his bag away. guy. He said that he told him to stop multiple times, and the teacher even confirmed that there had been teasings leading up to it. Well, the other parents demanded that my son apologize immediately. I then asked my son if he felt he did something wrong, and he said no. He said that he defended himself. The principal suggested that even if it was accidental, an apology might smooth things over. I then looked at my son and I told him he doesn't have to apologize for protecting himself. And the other parents were furious when I said that. They said that I'm teaching him to be aggressive and unaccountable. They said boys who aren't corrected early become worse later, and the school ended up giving both boys a warning. Ever since then, I've gotten cold looks at pickup. And one parent told me privately that sometimes it's easier to just make your kid say sorry to try and keep the peace. But I keep thinking about what that teaches him, that he should just accept mistreatment quietly, that defending himself is wrong, that other people's comfort matters more than his boundaries. He didn't hit him, he didn't chase him. He reacted to someone grabbing his property after repeated teasing. If I force him to apologize just to make adults feel better, what lesson is that? So am I the jerk for backing my child up instead of demanding an apology? Because right now this is honestly so annoying. Dude, you did the right thing here. Screw those other parents and screw the teachers and the principal for trying to back up the bully. I can't stand bullies, dude. They're the worst people in the world. Literally targeting someone and chasing after them like that, it's sick. Because the second the shoe's on the other foot, suddenly it's a problem. Never all the events leading up to this. No, of course it's the one time this idiot falls over. Suddenly we have a problem and it's like, oh, you need to apologize to my son. If you don't correct boys early, then they're gonna be such a problem later on. But it's like, okay, lady, what about your stupid kid? He's literally chasing around the original poster's son and treating them like garbage. Are you gonna be correcting your demon spawn? What's going on right now? This is so backwards. So no, you are not the jerk. You're absolutely not the jerk for defending your kid and being like, no, you don't have to apologize. Because you've got it right. They literally didn't do anything wrong, and that is absolutely not your problem. My boyfriend kind of just moved into my house without really asking me after he got kicked out of his house and said that he had nowhere else to go. But now he refuses to give me any space, and I'm honestly feeling suffocated, putting me in a position where I really just don't know what to do anymore. Here's how it all started. Okay, I know this sounds odd, but hear me out. Me and my boyfriend have been dating for about 6 months now. I still live with my parents, and he used to live with his until about 3 months ago. However, he never told me that he actually moved out. I didn't find out until I caught him messaging his ex-girlfriend online, and I asked him to please stay at his own house that night. And that's when he told me that he actually didn't have anywhere else to go because he moved out of his old house. Of course, this really annoyed me, and when I asked him if he could still stay there considering his bedroom is still there, he said that they use it as a storage room now. And just as a side note, we went over there to feed their dogs 2 weeks ago, and his room is not being used as storage. His bed and all his stuff are still there. Now, I know this is partially my fault, but he slowly started coming over, bringing clothing over, and sleeping over more and more. And I never really said anything about it. I do love him a lot, so of course I loved having him over whenever. But now it's gotten to a point where he never leaves. And whenever I ask for space, even as kindly as I can ask it, he gets very upset and says I'm kicking him out and that he doesn't have anywhere else to go. And I end up just having to deal with it. I sleep a lot now because it's the only time I feel alone. He never actually asked to move into my house, and now I don't know what to do. I really want to stay with him, but I'm worried that this is way too much. I'm constantly drained, and I never wanted to take on this serious of a relationship. We never even had a conversation about it. So seriously, is this okay? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, holy crap, dude, I would kick him out and then dump this guy. There's no way I would ever put up with this. This is insane behavior. He's basically saying, oh yeah, I got kicked out of my house. I guess I'm moving in with you. And he's essentially slow rolled this in a way where it's oh yeah, before you know it, you essentially have a new roommate whether you like it or not. And that's incredibly obnoxious and very uncalled for. So yeah, I would seriously consider kicking him out and just moving on and finding a better relationship. Because your boyfriend doesn't sound like a winner, and I think you could do way better than this guy. Am I the jerk for refusing to give up my bedroom to my brother simply because my mom wants him to have it instead of me? Because right now my entire routine is on the verge of being disrupted, and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. I'm a 19-year-old female that's in college, and my family recently moved into a 2-bedroom apartment, which currently holds my mother, me, and my brother. Now, at first it was only going to be me and my mom living here because my brother was staying with our dad. But after we moved, he came back to live with us. Since there are only 2 bedrooms, my mother bought a couch that turns into a bed. So my brother's been sleeping in the living room. He's been complaining about it a lot, and now my mother is tired of hearing about it. And so she's basically decided that he should get my bedroom and I'll be the one sleeping in the living room instead. But you know what? I refused. The issue is that I use my room a lot to study and focus, and my brother usually stays up until 4 o'clock in the morning playing video games. I feel like if he gets the room, it'll mostly be just so he can stay up late gaming while I'll lose my space and have my routine disrupted. I understand that sleeping in the living room isn't ideal, but I don't think it's fair that I should have to give up my room when I was already there and using it for school. I should also mention that living with my dad wasn't a good situation for my brother, which is why he moved in with us. However, my mom is worried that he might go back to living with him. Therefore, she wants to give him the room so he stays with us. And I really just don't want to add more stress to her since being a single mother is already hard. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk. I think this is a really stupid situation, and I just would hate this personally, because you're literally being sacrificed all so that your brother, who clearly doesn't have his act together, can get your room just so he doesn't live with your dad. Because let's step back for a second. Like, how is this your fault at all? Why are you somehow like the mediator suddenly of this situation that honestly has nothing to do with you? So no, you're not the jerk for refusing to give up your bedroom. That is such a stupid ask in my opinion. Because honestly, it doesn't sound like your brother is taking his life seriously and would much rather just stay up until 4 a.m. playing video games than actually applying himself and proving why he needs it. Am I the jerk for telling my sister-in-law that I'm done driving her son to his sports program, all because this kid not only treats me like garbage, but also my in-laws are taking advantage of my kindness? Because right now this has all gotten really out of hand and we just don't know what to do anymore. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my husband's brother and his wife have a 14-year-old son, and it is kind of a long story, but they're both working opposite shifts right now and have been struggling to keep up with everything. We live close to them and I work remotely, so when their son got accepted into this competitive travel sports program earlier this year, they asked if I could help with transportation a few times a week, since practices are about 40 minutes from their house, but only 10 minutes away from mine. And you know what? To all of that, I said sure, I really don't mind. I like the kid and I wanted to help out. Well, that was about 5 months ago, and somehow I went from helping a few times a week to being his full-time chauffeur. I'm driving him there and back almost every single practice and on game days, and his parents have taken him maybe 3 times in total. I rearranged my entire work schedule around this kid's practice times. I have 2 kids of my own, and I've had to shuffle their stuff around just to make it work. But you know what? I kept doing it just because, it's family, right? Well, here's where it got really bad. This kid's attitude has gotten progressively worse towards me. If I'm even just a few minutes late, he gets in the car and doesn't say hi, but instead just immediately starts to complain. He even told me to shut up once when I asked him how practice went. He demanded that I stop at a drive-thru on the way home, and when I said not today, he didn't speak to me for the entire ride home and slammed my car door when he got out. Last week, I was maybe 10 minutes late picking him up because I was at a conference at my own kid's school, and when he got into the car and started screaming at me about how I was going to make him late and that I don't take his schedule seriously, I literally pulled over and I told him that he does not get to talk to me like that. I'm doing him and his parents a favor and I deserve basic respect. And to that, he told me that I was being dramatic. I then called my sister-in-law that night and I told her what happened. She then apologized and said, yeah, he's been like that at home too. I then asked what consequences he's getting, and she basically said to me, well, we do try, but he throws a fit and we don't want to escalate things. Which means basically that nothing's happening. But this weekend was the final straw. His parents asked my husband to drive him to a game on our one day off together, and my husband said no, as we do have plans. But then they started guilt-tripping him until he agreed. Then after the game, they called asking us to pick him up too, even though they were literally 15 minutes closer to the field than we were. And it's here that I told my husband I'm done. And you know what? He agrees as well. But now I'm scared that telling them this is gonna make things blow up, because they're gonna act like we're abandoning their kid when really we're just done being disrespected by a teenager whose own parents won't discipline him, putting me and my husband in a situation where we literally don't know what to do. Okay, dude, I would literally say no, we're not giving this brat a ride ever again, and then never look back. This is so unacceptable. What is going on right now? Are these parents really not gonna punish their kid for mouthing off? They should be on their hands and knees thanking you for even picking this idiot up in the first place. Are you serious right now? This is so backwards. So no, you're not the jerk for telling them to get lost and that you're not helping them out anymore. Because in my opinion, they have taken advantage of you for the last time, as this kind of behavior from the kid is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for being furious at my roommate after finding out that she caused all the problems in our apartment that she spent a year telling me wasn't a big deal? Because now I'm very pissed off and I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, I'm gonna try really hard to explain this without sounding petty, but honestly, I think I'm past caring about sounding petty at this point. For starters, I share an apartment with a friend, and we've been living together for about a year and a half. Early on, I noticed the water pressure in the shower was awful, barely a trickle. It took forever to rinse shampoo out, and washing dishes dishes was painful. Now, I brought this up to my roommate because she had moved in a couple of months before, and I figured that she might know if it was always like that. She said, yeah, it's just this building, the water pressure really sucks pretty much everywhere. And she said that she already asked the landlord about it when she moved in, and they said there's nothing they can do to fix it as it's just old pipes. So you know what? I just accepted it. For over a year, I dealt with weak showers. I bought one of those high-pressure shower heads online, and it barely helped. I also stopped filling pots from the kitchen sink because it took so long, and instead started using the bathtub faucet, which only slightly had better pressure. Like, I literally adjusted my whole routine around this. Well, last week, a plumber came to fix a leak under the kitchen sink, and while he was there, I casually asked about the water pressure. He then checks a few things and then goes under the sink and turns a valve that only halfway was open. Well, when he did that, we instantly had full pressure. I then asked him why it was like that, and he said that someone must have turned it down at some point, maybe during a repair or when hooking up the dishwasher. Now, my roommate hooked up a portable dishwasher when she moved in, which is right before I got there. I then asked her about it that night, and it's at this moment she got quiet and said, oh yeah, I might have turned that when I was setting up the dishwasher. I didn't know it would affect the whole kitchen. So yeah, she caused the problem. And then she told me the building just had bad water pressure. And then she let me spend money on a new shower head and rearrange my entire routine for over a year. And the entire time, she never once thought to mention that she messed with the valves under the sink. Well, I told her I was really frustrated, and she said it was an honest mistake, and I was making a big deal out of nothing. But it's not nothing to me. I asked her about this specific issue, and she gave me a fake answer that made me stop looking for a solution. If she had just said, oh, I turned something under the sink when I moved in, guess what? This all would have been fixed in 5 minutes a year ago. So am I the jerk for getting pissed off? Because honestly, I'm still pissed off. Oh man, I would also be pretty upset if I had a roommate who did this because, dude, this could have been fixed for so long. And this is not you overreacting. You literally changed your life around for this. You're getting water out of the bathtub for crying out loud, dude. Like, that's a big change to your schedule. So no, you're not the jerk for getting pissed off. Your roommate should feel very stupid for ruining this for you. Because not only did they lie to you multiple times, but all they had to do was be honest and be like, hey, I think I messed something up, and literally all of this would have been solved. But instead, they decided to be weird about it, which in my opinion is more than enough reason to be very pissed off about this. My entitled family treats me and my husband like garbage and have even gone as far as to call me a gold digger and that I'm only with my husband for money. But after being mistreated by my husband's family for so long, we both decide that enough is enough, resulting in us getting the best revenge possible by changing our last name and disconnecting from them entirely, causing them to freak out in a way that we truly did not expect. Here's what happened. So I got married 3 years ago to my husband, and I changed my last name to his immediately following. My relationship with my in-laws was never super, but it was civil until about 2020 when our differences became obvious and they were hard to reconcile. They have never welcomed me into their family and never put forth any effort to be a part of our lives. At first, my husband just said things like, well, they're like this with new people, or this is just how they are. Over time, though, they have not only managed to alienate me, but my husband as well. They have implied that I'm digging for gold and have called me quite a few unpleasant names. My husband had enough with them during our first year of marriage, and when he went low contact with them, they tried guilt, manipulation, and passive aggressiveness to get him to resume what we would call his previous role in the family. And that role was him basically doing all the work in the relationship. Well, when that didn't work, they basically cut us off. They never called much before, but now they never called. And then act like it's our fault when they don't, and then play the victim constantly. Now, for a bit of background, I have BPD, which stands for borderline personality disorder, and my new last name just didn't feel like me, especially considering his family. After my diagnosis a year ago, my therapist explained sometimes people with BPD struggle with this since we struggle with identity as well. So it's been talked about a lot, and it was then that my husband had suggested that we both change our last names. And I thought it was an interesting idea. I didn't want my maiden name back because it's hard to spell and pronounce, and it's not all that common in our country. Now, I liked his last name, but it was such a common last name. We talked about this for about a year, and we settled on my deceased grandmother's maiden name. It's common, it's easy to say, and it's easy to spell. And we feel this honors my family, who we have to thank for our lovely life today. It was surprisingly easy. We set up a court date, we filled out the papers, we had a hearing all within a few weeks, and then we changed it on social media. Well, his family found out and they are super pissed off. And some of my family found out and they're pissed off. They said we had no reason or right to do this. I told all of them it was a decision between me and my husband and it was not up for debate. On his side of the family, they cut us off and never even talked to us. And on my side, no one even owns the name, and it left with my grandmother when she passed away. family. One of my aunts tried to say that I needed their permission, but in my opinion, the only person I would need to have permission from would be my grandma or my father, but both of them have passed away already. My mother thought it was a great idea, and so did my siblings, but we are getting bombarded, and we're currently trying to gray rock all of them. But it's not like this was a rash decision. We are both very happy with the change, but the amount of backlash I've been getting has me wondering if we messed up by not announcing it or telling people in advance. What should we do? Okay, first off, you have every right to change your last name, especially if your husband's family is going to be treating you like crap in the way that they have been. Seriously, from day one, they've been treating you like garbage all the time, saying that you're digging for gold while also calling you all sorts of names, and then also trying to alienate you and your husband all the time. I mean, who in their right mind would want to stay in a family like that? Like, if I was in your shoes, I would have the same conversation. I would be super pissed off that I'm still getting treated like garbage by these people who literally are masquerading as family. And then they're the ones that freak out all because you guys say, okay, we're going low contact. This is insane. As if they want you to stick around and enjoy this awful treatment. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all. If you guys want to change your last name and no longer associate with those people, then my God, you have every right to do that. Because based on what you've described, these people sound like an absolute nightmare. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that I was done inviting her to parties after she repeatedly took the leftovers that I had without asking? Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, I throw a lot of dinner parties, and I mean a ton. I like to cook, so I always put food on the table, and I would say that I'm a pretty good chef. One of my friends comes all the time, but the problem is that she takes all the leftovers. Every single time that there's a scrap left, she decides to take it. And sure, I appreciate that she doesn't want to waste food, but that is not the problem. The problem is that I want some leftovers too. So I told her when we're eating this time, I say, hey, don't take the leftovers, okay? And she said to me, yeah, that sounds good. Well, fast forward to the end of the party, and lo and behold, she takes the stupid leftovers. When I noticed later that night, I texted her and said, hey, if you can't stop taking the leftovers, I'm not going to invite you anymore. And she says okay to that. The next time that she comes over for a party, I remind her when we're eating, don't take the leftovers. And she again says okay. Well, when she's about to leave, I was sitting near the table, and guess what I see? I see that she's taking the leftovers again. So I tell her that if she couldn't listen to a boundary that I set, then the clear consequence that I discussed with her was that she would not be invited to any more parties. She then said that it wasn't fair that she couldn't have some, and she was only taking a bit this time. Now, I'm not sure if that's true, but I told her I didn't want her to take any. She then says okay and puts them back. Fast forward to the next time I hosted a party and she wasn't invited. Apparently, she found out through the grapevine and she got incredibly pissed off, saying that she put them back and I should have invited her again. Well, at this point, I think she might be right, and that I might be the jerk in this situation. So seriously, am I in the wrong? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're in the wrong. She clearly was taking advantage of your cooking, and she was taking all the leftovers and not leaving you any. In my opinion, leftovers absolutely go to the host, and then they can decide where they want to put them next, whether that's in their fridge or somebody else's. So no, you didn't do anything wrong, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. An entitled old jerk exposes my cards during a poker tournament, resulting in him getting disqualified, banned from rebuying in, as well as getting kicked out of the venue itself. Here's what happened. Okay, so I play a lot of poker as it is a nice hobby of mine, and 99% of the players I meet are super friendly and we enjoy conversation while playing. One of the biggest etiquette violations and rule violations is touching another player's cards. The player can show their cards if they want, but unless it's to prove your cards are better than someone else's, you can throw away your cards without showing. Playing in a tournament last Monday, I'm in a small blind, and everyone's only made the minimum bet to me. I have a pair of 9, so I raised to the equivalent of 3 big blinds. Now, the entitled idiot of this story to my left re-raises me to the equivalent of 13 blinds, and because of this, everyone throws away their cards and it goes back to me. Now, in my experience playing, older players tend to be very tight players, typically only playing high pairs, but they also tend to play a wider range of cards against younger players because according to them, they've been playing poker since before I was born. So I tend to prefer re-raising them pre-flop and playing aggressively. So I ended up re-raising him to the equivalent of 40 big blinds, and I'm committed to go all in against him if needed. Now, this entitled idiot thinks and sits there and thinks some more, and ended up showing me a pair of jacks and said, "Your pair of queens is good," and throws away his hand. The dealer then pushed all the chips to me, and I decide to just throw away my cards. Well, wouldn't you know it, this entitled idiot grabs my cards and flips them over to show a pair of 9s. Now, before anyone can say anything, the dealer instantly calls the manager over over and explains the situation. Meanwhile, this idiot is chastising me for aggressively playing a pair of nines and how he was ahead and should have just called his raise. The floor manager disqualifies him and kicks him out, which causes this moron to literally throw an instant temper tantrum. We're talking full-on toddler rage. He was screaming, "He's not playing correctly. He raised nines pre-flop. He's an idiot. I folded pocket jacks. This is so crazy," and so on and so forth. Security, as well as the police, ended up dragging him away, and we eventually resumed our play, despite the fact that this guy was making a scene the entire way out the door. Okay, I've got to be honest, I really love this story because this guy is salty that he lost. He's just pissed off because he got outplayed in a way that he was not expecting. And I also love the fact that you said, "Nope, I'm not going to show you my cards," and you instead just throw him away, getting in his head completely, which obviously worked because this guy freaked out. He lost his mind over this, and that's really funny to me. So good for you for getting this guy in trouble, because from the sounds of it, he deserved to get banned. Am I the jerk for refusing to change my bachelorette trip date, all because of one friend who is desperately trying to reschedule it just so it can fit her schedule specifically? Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm getting married this year, and my 16 friends and I have been planning my bachelorette trip. To make scheduling fair, I asked everyone to send me the dates they were not available so I could pick a date that worked for the most people, especially since some friends are traveling from other countries. After going through everyone's responses, there was only one date that worked for everybody, so I went ahead and announced it. That same day, one of my closest friends suddenly said that she had been planning a trip around that time. However, she had never mentioned it before and hadn't booked any flights, and was only reconsidering her date because someone told her destination might be crowded. Since the condition for choosing my trip date was to prioritize the availability of the most people, I explained to her 3 separate times why that date was final. But despite that, she kept trying to change it. She even created another poll in our group chat to see if others could move their own important plans to accommodate her. She also started privately messaging people, trying to convince them to say they could be flexible. Now, at first, I didn't directly call her out in the chat, but after she made a second poll, I sent a general message stating that the date was already chosen and it wasn't going to change. Well, now she's upset and claims I embarrassed her by calling her out instead of speaking to her privately, even though I had already tried 3 times. I feel like she put me in a tough position, making me choose whose availability mattered more. I understand she really wants to be there, but I also think it was unfair of her to disregard everyone else's plans. I have no intention of changing the date, and honestly, I'm not planning to apologize because I don't think I did anything wrong. What should I do? Okay, first of all, this friend is completely out of line, and they only want to change things because it doesn't line up with their schedule, which, by the way, they had plenty of time to check and double check and really make sure this is something they can even go to. So for them to go behind your back and be like, "Okay, let's start a second poll on behalf of the soon-to-be bride," like that would set my hair on fire because I would be so pissed off if someone did that to me. There's no way on planet Earth I would ever be okay with that, and in my opinion, neither should you. And it's so funny to me that she's trying to be like, "Well, you could have privately talked to me about it," when she herself is not being private about any of this. She's literally going behind your back to try and reorganize your bachelorette trip. She's seriously being a hypocrite right now. So no, you're not the jerk, and in my opinion, I would almost be tempted to be like, "Look, you just can't show up anymore. I don't want you there. You've been really dishonest, and I just can't have that," because her behavior, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for not allowing my parents to bring my siblings to my place, as they have a history of breaking things that they get their hands on? Because right now my parents are pissed and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I moved out as soon as I got into college, and from that I shared a college apartment and I moved straight into my own place. I got a nice downtown loft for myself in the same city I went to college, and this is about 7 hours from my hometown. So as you can imagine, I was barely home over the last 6 years. My dad really misses me a lot. He raised me as a single parent after my biological mom abandoned me postpartum, and my stepmom has also missed me a lot and was a fantastic parent to me throughout the years. I miss them both a lot, and we never had much conflict until now. Our main problem here is my siblings. I have a brother who's 10 years old and a sister who's 7. I had little to no contact with them really, but the times I do see them, they're a nightmare. For example, this year I stayed in my parents' home from Christmas Eve to New Year's, and in that short period of time, they managed to break my Nintendo Switch and shatter my phone screen, and both times neither object was left unattended near them. For my Switch, they swiped it from my room by going through all of my things while I was away, and then they broke it. And for my phone, they kicked a ball at me while I was texting, causing me to drop it, which shattered the screen. And this is just the most recent example of them being like this. My place is essentially one big open space. It's a big loft. The only door is to the bathroom, obviously, leaving the rest of this as one giant space. It's mostly occupied by my thousands of dollars worth of music gear, and it's more of an I live in my studio situation rather than I have a studio at home home situation. I don't even own a bed. I sleep on a futon, so whenever they want to visit, I just tell them no, and that I will have to go to them instead. I only ever host at my place whenever my grandparents have my siblings, but this is starting to annoy them, and they wanted to know why. So I told them that the reason I don't host them at my place is because I don't want my siblings in here because they will break things, and I don't want to deal with that. Well, my parents are hurt, saying that my brother and sister should be more important than money and possessions, and that I moved away from home without making an effort to be in the lives of my siblings. They also say my siblings are hurt from me not putting any effort into being in their lives, especially since the family talks a lot about me near them. I love my parents, but I think they're being unreasonable, expecting me to allow my siblings here, where they will be surrounded by thousands of dollars of sensitive gear when they have a track record of breaking things. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, you're definitely not the jerk. Those kids are idiots, and there's no reason you should ever invite that into your home. They broke your phone and your Nintendo Switch. That's hundreds of dollars out the window. And with that in mind, just imagine what they could do with your music equipment. Seriously, this is unbelievable. And it's so funny to me that your parents are like, oh, come on, your family should be worth more than just the possessions you have. Love is more important than money. And it's like, oh, there it is. There's that red flag I was waiting for. They're literally excusing any future bad behavior from those kids instead of admitting that it's a problem and correcting them for when they do it. It sounds like these kids are super spoiled and they don't have anybody telling them no, which is only going to result in more bad behavior. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and I think you're smart for saying no, they can't show up. Because even if their feelings are hurt, their behavior is absolutely unacceptable, and you do not deserve to deal with that in the slightest. My toxic in-laws sent her church friends to bother my daughters and myself, accusing all of us of terrible mistreatment while also saying that we're not good Christian women. So I decided to get some revenge by literally exposing them for their lies, forcing them to leave their church and walk a life of shame, as I successfully put them in their place in a way they will never forget ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, so my daughters have a strained relationship with my ex-husband's parents. My ex passed away in an accident last year, and we've had some major family drama since then due to his cheating and him leaving two boys born with his affair partner orphaned. She also passed away, and part of the drama has been my ex-in-laws trying to get custody of my daughters and them also trying to live with us. The first one we're going to court over, and the second one will never happen. Where we live, there's a weekend market with fresh produce, eggs, meats, and other products straight from farmers. And this week was extra special since it was my youngest kid's birthday. Since her party is later in the month, I decided to give her a budget and set her loose on the market to get whatever she wanted. And this was mostly chocolate and other sweets. After an hour, I did start getting worried. And just before I called her, she called me. She was crying and saying that some weird people have her cornered. I ran to her with my oldest daughter to find 6 older women berating my daughter for being unchristian, for refusing to spend time with her paternal grandparents, or for wanting to be a good big sister to her poor orphan baby brothers. My daughters are the one that found out about my ex cheating and the babies, so they aren't really fond of the kids. It's a really bad situation, and they are working with a therapist. I got between the group and my daughter, telling my eldest to go pay the stuff her sister had and to go to the car. Then I turned to the women, some who I knew from when we went to my ex-in-laws church, and I ripped them a new one. They told me I was worse for refusing to obey my ex-in-laws like a good Christian wife, and I nearly vomited when they said that. Eventually, the screaming turned too loud, and we were asked to leave the market. I met with my girls in the car, and the women followed me like a group of vultures. I managed to get in the car, and then I drove off. After my girls went to bed, I got online to talk to another member of that church that I'm in good terms with. I told him about what had happened, and after he apologized, he told me what was going on. My ex-mother-in-law posted this massive story in the church's Facebook group about how horrible my daughters and I are, how we are leaving them homeless and penniless, and how my daughters don't even talk to them. She also accused us of being the reason she lost her grandsons. The boys are now living with distant relatives of my ex-husband, and basically it was a sob story worthy of a Hallmark movie. And of course, they were getting all the love and support from the more extremist members of their church. This church and its members are a bit annoying, especially any topics related to LGBTQ, but they have a small saving grace. They are incredibly strict about cheating. It is a big no-no, be it from a husband or wife equally. Now you might be wondering, how did she get around blaming me about the affair children without exposing the cheating? Well, she claimed that the other woman was our surrogate since I was unable to have any more children, then said I didn't want the babies because they were boys, which is absolutely disgusting to be accused of. Well, I decided it was time to clean up this mess, and since I was mid-divorce when my ex died, I had all the evidence that I needed. And since the divorce wasn't completed, I don't have any legal ramification for releasing all the evidence. I was off the next day and I went to a print shop to get copies of all all the delightful pictures of my ex cheating, his text conversations with his affair partner, the ones with his parents confessing to his cheating and getting support from them, my ex-in-laws bothering me about the divorce, and the final nail in the coffin, all of the emails and text messages from them bullying my daughters about their baby brothers. In one of them, they call my daughters a really awful name and telling them that it was their fault their father passed away since they told me about the affair and I began the divorce. And this one was literally 2 days after my ex died. I paid extra for all of this to be painted in beautiful high-quality paper. Then when I got home, I sat down for hours to make delightfully personalized binders. They even look like the little prayer song packets that the church give out for everyone to take and sing hymns. The first picture when opening the binders is one of my ex and his side woman making out in our living room. Their faces are easy to discern, and the girl looks nothing like me. She had different skin tones and different hair color. Underneath it, I said that this was a love story between my ex-husband and the girl he was having an affair with. Well, the gossip mill was quick and harsh. The names my ex and his affair partner got called in the Facebook group were so bad that the pastor himself had to get involved just to keep things relatively PG-13. People were angry at my ex-in-laws for the way they treated my daughters. But what made me laugh was that I was still in the wrong for the divorce, because apparently it's understandable that I failed on my duties after the shock, and I possibly will one day return to the light, unlike my cheating husband and his Jezebel. They used another word that I can't use here, but I think you can imagine what I really mean here. I then got 2 apology letters in the mail from my girl, as well as an invitation to join the church for support. Now, as for my ex-in-laws, they got shamed into leaving the church. My ex-mother-in-law made a post on her wall about how alienated she feels and how no one cares for the elderly anymore, how she wished her great son was still alive, since he would have taken care of her and her husband. But I'm honestly glad I got one over on these people, because they truly are the absolute worst. Oh man, this really pisses me off. This is so uncalled for. You mean to tell me 2 days after their dad died, your in-laws message your kids and say this is your fault? Like, what are you talking about? That is crazy to me. For starters, there's no justifiable reason any of these people should be messaging your daughters, not to mention the fact that they're literally putting them down for something they had no control over. And it's also hilarious that they literally ignore the cheating part that literally caused all of this to really take place. Because at the end of the day, if he didn't cheat, then guess what? You probably wouldn't have gotten a divorce. So good for you for exposing these people for the liars that they are. Because I really feel that's exactly what you need to do when someone tries to lie about your name, especially when you have evidence like this. Because the way these people treated you, in my opinion, was so unfair, and they deserve to be shut down in the way that they were. My entitled sister demanded that I drive her to see her friend on Christmas Day, but when I refused to do so, my sister tried to guilt trip me by drinking so much that she would no longer be able to drive, and thus try to force me to drive her to do exactly what she wanted. But even then, I stood my ground, resulting in my sister driving under the influence and eventually crashing and totaling her car. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my sister and I used to be neighbors, so to speak. I live in a sub-building rented from my parents, and she lived in a fifth-wheel trailer with her kids next to it. On Christmas Day about 3 years ago, she and her visiting ex-husband, along with their kids, were outside having fun in the snow. I went outside to hang out with them, and at a random point, my sister suddenly asked me to take her later on to meet a friend of hers because they were alone with no family on Christmas. Now, I didn't want to do this because not only did I not know this person, but I know my sister very well. If I were to have been her ride, I would have been stuck waiting there for hours. When she wanted me to do this sort of thing for her back then, it was because she wanted to drink and couldn't have alcohol if she drove herself. Also, it was snowing and the roads were covered, and I really just didn't want to risk it. For reference, my truck is a 98 RWD Ford F-150, and I had no chains for the tires. It's a heavy steel beast that could slip off the road very easily, and I tend to call it a brick with wheels. I relayed all of that information to my sister, but she still got angry at me for not agreeing, and she couldn't mentally understand that her four-wheel drive car would be better on the snow-covered country roads than my truck. But I couldn't drive her with her car anyways, because it was a manual shift and I drive automatic. She kept acting like my vehicle would do better because it's a truck, but I explained that if it were a 4x4 then yes, but it's rear-wheel drive, which means it's both heavy and it's got no front power to help keep traction on the road, so it would slip and slide, and likely would not even be able to make it up the hill. Her car was smaller, lighter, she had chains and traction control. I also have very little experience driving on icy and snowy roads. Well, she basically scoffed and walked away, and I really hoped that she would let it go, but she didn't. After having fun in the snow, we went over to our parents' house and celebrated Christmas Day. Now, my sister didn't speak of wanting me to drive her to see that guy, and I don't know why, but maybe it was because it would be be in front of our parents because she knew that they would tell her to leave me alone. But I did get an occasional dirty look from her if we made eye contact. And when our parents weren't in earshot, she would make a jab at me about how she would do something like that for me if I needed it, and I should be doing it for her. But I did not relent. My sister then started drinking, probably in hopes that she could try and guilt trip me by saying that she was too inebriated to drive. But even still, I didn't relent. As she drank more, her glares towards me kept getting nastier. In fact, that's what she used to do to get her way from me. She would act increasingly bitter and treat me like the bad guy until I caved. But not this time. Anything related to vehicle danger, I have a pretty shiny spine about it. So I just let her glare at me. By the time the party was almost over, she'd obviously realized her spite gambit didn't work. So she hopped her drunk self into her car and took off, even though she was drunk and shouldn't have been driving. She had gotten a DUI a couple of years prior, so she absolutely knew better. But she didn't care. Thankfully, her ex took their kids to his house for a few days, so I wasn't worried about my nephews. I told my parents what my sister had tried to make me do, and they were pretty angry about it too, and backed me up on my decision to say no. Not only because the roads were treacherous, but because it really wasn't fair to me to keep driving her places just so she could get drunk. If she really had so much pity for this guy to visit him for a couple of hours on Christmas, then she could have done it sober. As I said before, I didn't know this guy that she wanted to visit, and my sister just wanted an excuse to go drink with a friend. And if I had taken her, I would have been waiting around for her for hours. My sister has no sense of being on someone else's time either, especially when she's drinking. The phrase "time to go" meant absolutely nothing to her. She could almost never stick to a deadline if alcohol was involved, so I'm glad I don't have to deal with her anymore. Later on, I was taking a nap when I was awoken to what sounded like my sister's car alarm. I looked out the window and I saw a large truck I didn't recognize leaving her driveway. I went over and I knocked on her door to ask what was going on, and she was absolutely in some kind of mood, and I doubt she was able to drink for the hours she was away with what I learned later. I asked her whose truck I saw, and she angrily told me it was her lonely friend that I didn't take her to see, and he drove home behind her to make sure that she didn't crash. I asked if the roads were really that bad, and she confirmed that they were, so I said that it was a good thing I didn't try to drive my truck on them either then. She then passive-aggressively said, "Yeah," all before spitefully bidding me goodnight for the evening and slamming the door in my face. Well, fast forward and I learned the next day that my sister had gone off the road and crashed. She messed up her passenger side fender pretty bad, and she had to call the guy she was going to see to come pull her out of the ditch. And then he had to help her get home once she calmed down. So she got a fair dose of karma that day. I felt most sorry for her car though. I mean, she absolutely destroyed that car in the few years that she owned it. That fender was just one of many things to get broken because of her reckless driving. Thankfully, my sister doesn't live here anymore, and we evicted her toxic self in late 2023, and now she's extremely bitter that we won't help her anymore. Wow, your sister is super entitled, and honestly, I love the fact that karma came right back to bite her in the butt. She really tried to play the gambit of like, oh, I'm gonna get so drunk that you have no choice but to drive me where I want. And that is like crazy to me. Like, that's so spiteful and immature, and I just don't blame you for standing your ground and being like, no, I'm absolutely not gonna drive you. Because you're right, you would have been there forever. You would have been on the hook probably until 2 o'clock in the morning, if not later. Like, who's to say she wouldn't just hold you there indefinitely while she gets wasted with some guy that she probably doesn't even know that well. So good for you for standing your ground, because honestly, this probably saved your life. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled sister is literally the bane of my existence, as she has constantly caused problems in my life and my parents' life for as long as I can remember. And now this situation has escalated to a point where quite literally I don't feel comfortable being around her in the slightest, because her life choices and her attitude are truly affecting everybody around us. Here's what happened. So this story is a long one, and I just want to say ahead of time that there's a lot of details that I need to cover. Okay, to start things off, after my sister was evicted from the family property, she went to live with her creepy best friend, who eventually kicked her out. And then after that, she started living with her awful boyfriend, who was also her dealer, if you know what I mean. This guy was messed up in the head and a rage monster, and he was also really smart and fixed up and resold cars despite legally being on disability. The first time I met this guy, I could tell how two-faced he was and wanted to be as far away from him as possible. Then one day my sister called me crying. Apparently her boyfriend had stranded her and her puppy in an unlivable camper trailer on the side of the road, and he was holding the other two of her dogs, her cat, and the title to a car that she had bought from him hostage. He did leave her with another car, but it was an awful Volvo that didn't even run, and the guy had busted out the rear window window with a hammer in one of his fits of rage. My sister called the police, but the cops told her that he can break his own stuff, and there wasn't much of anything they could do. Now, I came running to help my sister after she called, despite all the years that she had made me utterly miserable. Her boyfriend's parents came running to help too, because even they know that he is insane. And together, we managed to load all of my sister's stuff into my truck. But my sister has no sense of getting rid of unneeded things when forced to downsize, and my F-150 barely contained it all. Then we had to go back to her boyfriend's apartment to get back her pets and car title. Well, this is when we find out that this guy had lockpicked my sister's safe and stole the car title right out of it. And worst of all, he repeatedly denied it with this awful grin on his face. I mean, he was gaslighting everybody. He and my sister spent like an hour shouting back and forth at each other, and it was dark by the time it was all over. My sister threatened to call the cops on him unless he returned the car title, and he kept denying having it. But my sister knew just enough about his life to screw him over if she did call the cops. And when my sister didn't back down after all of that, the guy just stormed up to his apartment because he couldn't gaslight her into leaving. Then, when my sister wasn't looking, he ran back out and threw an envelope through the window of my truck and onto the passenger seat. And then he ran back in. And wouldn't you guess it, it was the title to the car. If I had not seen the guy do it, I just know he would have tried to gaslight my sister and say it was there the whole time. Now, I have no idea if she confronted him about it later because I never got the chance to find out. My sister then had to go stay with her boyfriend's sister, who was a single mom with 2 kids and another one on the way. I had to drive my sister to go see her, and my sister barely looked up from her phone to give me directions unless I made her. And then she would get irritated with me and tell me that she was busy. Just about every new turn I needed to make, she would tell me almost at the last second. After unloading all of my sister's stuff, she begged me to take her cat home with me, which I did. And that cat was so happy to come back here because he was raised out here. As soon as I pulled in the driveway, he could smell where we were from inside his carrier and went from meowing with worry to purring intensely. And as soon as I let him out, he ran around the yard happily. Well, ever since then, I've had this cat chipped and registered in my name because my sister would just take him back to living with a dealer if I allowed her to take him back. My sister spent barely 2 days living with her boyfriend's sister, and the two of them were at each other's throats because my sister is not only impossible to live with, but she also let her dogs pee and go to the bathroom all over the bedroom floor and didn't clean up any of it. In fact, I had to clean it all up when I got there. My sister's boyfriend managed to get that crappy Volvo running for her, only to then grab her by the hair, and she had to floor her to get away from him, which resulted in a chunk of her hair getting ripped out. I then met up with her and we packed my truck in that Volvo full of her junk, and then spent all day driving around with her to multiple places while she tried to find someone to take her in. But the problem is that since she's an entitled narcissist, she's literally burned through 98% of the friend bridges that she had. In fact, very few people even responded to her. She even dragged me to a produce farm where they had workers living out of campers, and even they weren't willing to take her in either. And in all this time, I was the only one walking all 3 of my sister's pugs. She barely got out of her car to do anything, let alone get off of her phone. And even when her phone went dead and had to charge, she simply did not help. If I even got mad at her, she would start crying and act pathetic because of her situation. And then she came up with her dumbest excuse yet. She claims she has split personalities, and that's why she's so mean to people for no reason. I didn't even bother to correct her because she just doesn't listen. She was diagnosed bipolar as a teenager and mentally blocked it out, and she is more than likely a narcissist as well. I've known her my entire life, and she's always been cruel and self-important. Add in being an alcoholic and an addict on top of that, and she's completely lost her mind, just not in the way that she thinks. She doesn't have any symptoms one would expect of split personality disorder. She doesn't identify by 2 different names or as 2 different people, and she doesn't get any memory loss from personality shifts. She just convinced herself that she's got split personalities for sympathy, and I really wish I was making this stuff up, but it all really happened. After following my sister from place to place for several hours on end, with her finding nowhere to live, we ended up parked in front of a convenience store at the beginning of the road home, or at least home for me, but not for her anymore. She's not allowed on the property at all. We spent hours parked there, while my sister kept calling and messaging people looking for someone to take her in, but no one did. What's worse is that I found out that day was the last day of her cell phone plan before it was cut off for non-payment, because her cell phone plan was through her piece of garbage boyfriend, and after that she could only message me through social media using Wi-Fi. During the hours we parked in front of this convenience store, my sister drove me ever more crazy with her entitlement. For example, at one point I asked her if she was thirsty and she said yes. So I went into the store and I bought her a big bottle of cold water. And not only was she ungrateful for it, she was mad that it wasn't beer. And then she wanted me to go back in and buy her a beer. I told her I would not facilitate her drinking and driving. But when I said that, she began berating me and then angrily ignored me for a while. In fact, she didn't even drink the water that I gave her. On a hunch, I asked her to pop the hood of the Volvo that she was driving because the engine sounded a little bit rough. I then checked the oil and guess what? There was like none in the engine. So I Googled the type of oil that the car needed and I went back into the convenience store. It was $8 for a quart of oil and it was literally only used so that the Volvo's engine wouldn't seize up. Then I asked my sister how much gas she had. And not only was the car on E, the fuel warning light had come on. And at this point, I was furious because literally she waited until then to finally tell me because now I have no choice but to buy her gas. And right as I'm getting gas, she says to me, "My car only takes premium fuel." And I'm thinking to myself, oh, fantastic. I mean, you just can't make this crap up. I had to pull out $20 from my wallet and I told her to go get gas at the nearby station. And then I told her that the $20 was for gas only, no beer. She then started crying and actually said, "Can I just get one beer?" And I said, no. She then tried to beg me, but I was adamant. This is my money, so it's only being used for gas. Now, I really figured that she would get beer anyways, but for once, she actually did as she was told. She went and got the gas and then she came back. And then she acted nice, but was still clearly upset because I still would not buy her the alcohol. I then ended up calling our parents on speaker to give them an update on the situation, and our mother was worried out of her mind, but our parents still refused to let my sister come back home after everything she had put us and her kids through, which, trust me, is a long story in and of itself. And I just know that if we allowed my sister to come back, even just for a little while, she would plant herself in my camper trailer and refuse to leave. So I was upfront in advance with my parents that my sister would not be staying in my camper. Now, my mother did admit to wanting to suggest it if it was just for one night or two, but realized I had had enough of my sister and didn't ask me. While on the phone, our mother started talking about how she'd get a baseball bat if my sister's boyfriend laid a finger on her again, and also started talking about getting my sister a motel room for the night. Meanwhile, my sister was losing her mind, having a tantrum in her car because she just has to make our mother the villain in her life. My sister literally can't function unless she has someone to blame and hate. I mean, that's how she's always been. During her tantrum, she was flailing her arms around and making incoherent noises. I kept trying to shush her without cluing our mother in, and my sister gave me a glare and rolled up her window to sit and pout. Well, my sister kept refusing to let our mother book her a motel room, and she started yelling that there's no way a motel would let her bring in 3 dogs, and that our mother freaking knows it. And no, our mother didn't know it. She was literally just trying to help. By this point, it was getting dark, and I needed to go home. I called my parents back, and they okayed me to bring my sister's junk home with me for the moment, but it all had to stay in my truck. Well, I had no choice but to leave my sister to spend the night in her awful car. So my sister started furiously digging through the back of my truck, looking for her dog food, but she couldn't find it. I then had to go back into the convenience store and buy her a $12 bag of dog food. And after giving her the dog food, that's when she suddenly said, "She's going to pass away, you know." And when she said that, I'm like, what are you talking about? She then told me that our mother was going to pass away. She then went on a rant about how her previous boyfriend passed away after cheating on her, and the woman he had cheated on her with also passed away soon after in something unrelated. My sister said that everyone who crosses her passes away, and our mother would be next. Well, needless to say, I was mortified and I got out of there. I then told my parents exactly what my sister said, and they were mortified too. As for my sister, she drove that crappy Volvo all the way back to her awful boyfriend's apartment and just spent the night parked there. Her boyfriend started scaring the crap out of her by getting on his motorcycle and circling the apartment complex, eyeing her like a vulture. And then my sister messaged me through social media in the middle of the night and said her boyfriend was coming for her. He literally said he was going to take her out earlier if he went back to prison. My sister then apparently heard shots fired and was freaking out and texting me like it was her last moment on earth. Now, I was ready to call the cops, but she refused to let me and said that they were completely useless. Then she texted me close to the morning and said that it was all fine and that what she was hearing was something unrelated. Then her boyfriend, just to be a jerk, decided to stab one of her Volvo tires, meaning that she had to put a spare on it just to make it work. Our mother then got in touch with her and got her that motel room for the night. And unsurprisingly, my sister wasn't very appreciative, and the motel treated my mother like garbage over the phone because they didn't want to book the room without holding her credit card. They made her jump through Lord knows how many hoops just to book the room. And guess what? My sister spent the night in the motel with her 3 dogs in that room. So I guess motels do allow it, but you can bet that she definitely did not apologize. And then the following day when my sister had to leave the motel, she went right back to her awful boyfriend's place and then messaged me just to bring her stuff back there. All that crap for the past few days just to end up back where she freaking started. I was pissed and my parents were as well. I drove back to my boyfriend's boyfriend's apartment in a fury, all the while practicing a speech in my head to tell my sister exactly what I thought of her. When I got there, my 40-year-old sister was dressed like a teenager in tiny shorts. She had a tube top on, and her hair was tied in a sideways ponytail, which, by the way, did not flatter her at all, because her face has aged badly from all the substances she's taken, if you know what I mean. She looked like she'd be on an episode of Cops any day now. Her boyfriend was there constantly, and I didn't want to risk pissing off this nutcase by yelling at my sister in front of him. So I just unloaded all of her stuff as fast as I could. Then I gave her some money because I knew she had zilch to her name, and I told her not to contact us until she goes to rehab or something, and then I turned to walk away. The last word I heard out of her mouth that day was her screaming, "Rehab?" literally just as I was leaving. She sounded like she honestly didn't get why I'd say that. I drove off to get some yellow curry from one of my favorite restaurants, and my sister started messaging me and asking me to please not ignore her. And then she actually said she didn't know she was such a burden on everyone. And it's like, seriously, she knows. She has always known that fact. She just has massive denial and main character syndrome. I blocked her that day, and it was a massive relief to do so. She called our parents later, and our mother told her she probably lost me forever. The only time I even let her talk to me as of late was because she wanted her mail. Now, my sister still came back and weaseled a bit more money out of us though, and I went out to eat with my parents, and my sister showed up at the restaurant in tears. She got $50 from our dad and $20 from me. And at this point, we're pretty sure that all that money was going into her habits, because before we kicked her out, she was borrowing from me when she already owed me hundreds and owes our parents and grandparents thousands. She then gave me the classic line that all addicts give out, "You know I'm good to pay you back." She wasn't even feeding her children, let alone paying her mortgage. Her ex-husband soon took the kids and refused to let her see them as long as her awful boyfriend was around. Then her boyfriend did end up going back to prison, and my sister has somehow been living off his disability money and gotten an apartment of her own. She also started dumpster diving and apparently found jewelry that she had sold to a pawn shop. Well, to top all of this off, my sister showed up at my house recently wanting her cat back, with the both of us getting into a shouting match and me kicking her off of the property. And just days after that, I had the cat chipped and I registered in my name. But honestly, I'm so done with my entitled sister because the way she treats my family is unacceptable. Wow, your sister is not a good person. I think I can confidently say that. She has screwed you guys out of money and time. She constantly is using everybody around you, and in my opinion, she is not grateful for any of the help that she's received. And this is one of those situations where it's like, oh, someone's showing me exactly who they are, and I think in this case, I really should believe them. Like, your sister literally was like, oh, mom's gonna pass away next. All because mom was trying to, like, what, get her a motel room, take care of her, and help her out in some kind of way? Like, what is going on? That is so crazy in my opinion. So seriously, hopefully you and your family can have a good life without your sister involved, because based on what you described, your sister sounds like an absolute nightmare to be related to. An entitled psycho teacher decides to fail me in my class, all because she doesn't like the work that I created for the class. So I decided to get some revenge by not only making her life a living nightmare as my teacher, but also for ruining her career in the process. Here's what happened. Okay, so this occurred way back in my junior year of high school. I was in a computer class that was very general, where we learned how to type, but also got a little familiar with stuff like Adobe Photoshop and Music Studio. The teacher who normally taught the class had a baby prior to the semester that I took the class, so a substitute teacher covered her entire maternity leave. Now, this substitute was an absolute jerk. The fun and entertainment I got from the original teacher's typing class that I had taken the semester before was now replaced by an evil woman who expected us to be professionals at programs we had only just learned about. Nobody in the class had higher than a B average. She dumped on my first Photoshop assignment because she didn't like the subject matter. For reference, it was a mech robot with a Gundam-inspired energy sword that I drew and colored by hand, taking me nearly a month to complete. I used Photoshop to clean up some of the rough edges and make it look even more realistic, which, if I'm being completely honest, is a feat that I should have been awarded high marks for. But because she hated the subject matter, I got a D+ on that assignment. The next week, we started our segment on Music Studio. Her assignment was to create a music clip that sounded weird or funny. I found a synthwave in the program labeled Final Crash, and I played it to myself, a descending crescendo followed by a final beat in an upbeat chord. Using the software, I created a loop of this sound clip and reversed it, playing the sound forward and reversed in repeating patterns for about 15 seconds. Now, my fellow students found the resulting music to be hilarious, but the teacher absolutely hated it, even going into dry heaves at the sound of it. She gave me a 0 on the assignment and then threatened me with detention if I ever played the sound again. I was already on the brink of failing my class prior to this because of the way she was grading my work, so this was the perfect reason for me to take my revenge. Now, I didn't mind a few detentions from a teacher I disliked if it meant making her life life a living nightmare for a few weeks as just a taste of what she had put me through. Now, a friend of mine worked in IT for the school as part of his aspirations to get a computer science degree. I gave him the offending sound clip and he notified the teacher that he needed to perform an update on her computer during her lunch break. Now, my class was after her lunch, so I got to see my revenge in all of its glory. My friend then went into the sound files of her computer and replaced all of her notification sounds with a 3-second piece of this sound clip. Every time she received an email, instant message, or any other warning from her computer, this sound would play at nearly maximum volume. The added bonus being that to prevent students from tampering with students' computers, they needed to input an IT password to access the control panels and turn it off. And this was an IT password that they didn't share with substitute teachers, all because of access to grading and transcripts. Well, when this happened, the substitute teacher had a complete meltdown, literally only after 2 emails from IT about the computer update. At this point, she sent me to the office and actually tried to have me expelled because of the sound, but our principal laughed her out of the office. The substitute teacher then unplugged her computer and instead took emails and instant messages on her phone for the entire duration of the final 2 weeks of class. In fact, the other students in my class used to play the sound clip from their computers just to annoy her. We even managed to get the sound clip played during the morning announcements, which I can only imagine made her throw things at the television. When the original teacher returned from her maternity leave at the beginning of my senior year, she changed my grade in the previous semester's class from a D to an A+ after reviewing my assignments, which meant that my revenge was achieved. And also, as icing on the cake, this substitute was asked not to return to my school district as a substitute, quite literally for the rest of her teaching career. Man, I love this story because seriously, that is so messed up. She literally was just gonna fail you because she didn't like what you were creating. And I can understand if you did it wrong and she didn't like it, but just to not like it straight up and be like, that's why I'm gonna fail you. It's like, come on, how is that fair? But thankfully, you had a teacher that had your back and made everything right by giving you the grade that you deserved, because that substitute teacher absolutely was out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my best friend with her wedding simply because she didn't make me a bridesmaid? Because now I'm being asked to do all this stuff that I honestly don't want to do if I'm not in her bridal party, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my best friend and I, who I will call May, have been close friends since middle school. We've talked about being in each other's weddings, so when she got engaged last year, I assumed I would be a bridesmaid. Well, she recently asked me to help with the wedding planning, but when she showed me the list of her bridal party, I wasn't on the list. I asked why, and she got awkward and said that she had to make some choices. The party included her sister, her fiance's sister, and a few newer friends that she's known for a couple of years. And she says that she wanted a small party. Now, I did not want to make it a big deal, so I congratulated her, and I figured I'd still be a guest. But then she started asking me for a lot of help. Things like dress shopping, DIY decorations, venue hunting, making party favors, etc. I finally told her, hey, I love you, but I still feel weird doing all of this when I'm not even a bridesmaid. She then got angry with me and said that she thought that I'd still want to be involved because we're best friends. I told her I would still be at the wedding, but I wasn't going to do all this extra work when she didn't even consider me close enough to be at her bridal party. And now she and some of our mutual friends are giving me the cold shoulder, saying I'm being petty and making the wedding about me, but I am not going to be doing bridesmaid level work if I'm not going to be one. So seriously, am I the jerk? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, you're definitely not the jerk here because your friend's being a complete idiot. She literally wants free labor out of you because either her bridesmaids don't want to do the work or she doesn't want to ask them. And this is not about you being her best friend or anything like that. If you really did mean that much to her, you'd be a bridesmaid after all. In my opinion, this has everything to do with the fact that she just can't find anyone to help her out, and she's using you as some way of getting all this stuff done, because it's pretty obvious that no one else is stepping up in her party at all. So no, you're not the jerk, because if I was in your shoes, I would do the exact same thing. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for wanting to move my pregnant friend out of my house after it's become abundantly clear that she is absolutely taking advantage of me? Here's what happened. Okay, so I had a friend move in with me while I was away. She decided to get pregnant, but she has no job interviews lined up, literally nothing. She has no car seat for the baby, and no baby items. When she told me she was pregnant, she said, "Oh, we're both having boys, we can share." I then laughed and I told her, I have a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house with a squatter who refuses to get a job, and I'm not sharing any of my baby's new stuff, but I will grab some things from a store called Savers. She then called me the biggest jerk there was and acted like we were supposed to be close, but we are not that close. We have a regular friendship, but when she fell on hard times, I wanted to help as much as I could because I understand that life is hard. The deal deal was that she would get a job and hustle until she had enough money to move out. I told her that she didn't need to pay rent so that she could save for her own place, but she needed to help clean up. I mean, I am a neat freak and I'm always cleaning something up. Well, today I asked her how much she had saved, and she said to me, "I've saved $0. I spent $7,000 today on everything I needed." And I was shocked. I asked her, wait, $7,000 on what? Nothing for a newborn costs that much. Well, she had bought all luxury baby items. Then she told me, "If you hadn't been such a selfish jerk and shared everything, I wouldn't have resorted to this." At that point, I told her she had 30 days to get her situation together. Now she's saying I'm a piece of garbage for kicking a pregnant woman out. I told her to return the luxury items and get affordable things instead. There's even a community baby shower where we live that happens every 2 months, but she refused. I then told her that if she had focused on getting a place before having a baby, she would be stable enough to afford what she needed. But now she's calling me a jerk and saying that I'm an untrue friend. I then wrote down an itemized list of everything I pay for and everything I've helped her with, and she got mad at me for keeping track. I told her, "This is just your list. If I add my kids, it's even more." And that's when she finally realized she doesn't know how she's going to manage as a single mom. So I told her again, return the expensive things, get baby items that fit her budget, and then she can stay. But she still refuses and insists that I'm a jerk for kicking her and her newborn out. I totally get that she may be taking advantage of me, but I do feel guilty about the situation, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I don't blame you for telling her that she's got to get her life together, and I think part of that is her moving out of your house. Seriously, this lady has no job, she has no job prospects, she barely has any money, and so she goes to you pretending like you're gonna help take care of her baby? Like seriously, what's going on right now? That is insane. She needs to get a grip and get a job, not mooch off of you and expect you to pick up the slack for her. So no, you're not the jerk for wanting her to go, because honestly, I would feel the exact same way. Today, I messed up by giving out a favor to people that were not my friends, because as a result, I found myself incredibly frustrated, realizing that this was a mistake from the very beginning. Here's what happened. So this happened when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. I live in Philadelphia, and my company gave us the day off if we planned to attend the parade. My plan was to see the parade with my roommate, hop in the car with her after, and then drop her at her mom's in New Jersey on my way to my mom's in New York. The day before the parade, I was in a Teams meeting with some coworkers when this girl, who we will call Juniper for the sake of the story, mentioned she wanted to go to the parade, but would have to travel from Jersey to Philadelphia and then from Philly to New York to do so. She and I are friendly but not friends, but for some reason I decided to extend a favor, and I mentioned to her that depending where in New York, I could just drop her off on my way to my mom's since I was planning on going there anyways. I also mentioned we would just have to make a quick pit stop in Jersey to drop my roommate off as well. I asked her where she would need to be dropped off, and she tells me Times Square. Now this is technically on my way, but I'm only going past the city, not through it, not to mention all the tolls. And she tells me this without offering to help pay for any of the tolls. So I tell her that the best I could do is drop them at a train station close to the outskirts. She told me that would be awesome, and that she would let me know if she ended up attending the parade or not. The next morning of the parade, I see a message from her asking if this other girl, we'll call her Emily, could also come along. Now I know of this girl and I have met her a few times, but I don't work with her directly. However, I know she and Juniper are really good friends. So I tell Juniper that if she and Emily are going to the same place, then it's fine. A couple hours later, she messages me again. They're not coming to the parade, but coincidentally, the hotel they are both staying at is only 30 minutes from where I'm dropping off my roommate, and then asked me if I wouldn't mind picking them up from there. I definitely told her that wasn't going to work for me, and that I was sorry she was going to miss the parade. But you know what? I definitely learned my lesson. Even if we're friendly coworkers, don't extend favors to people who aren't your friends, because chances are it's not gonna go well. Oh wow, they really took advantage of you. That seriously sucks. I honestly can't stand when people do something like this. They know that you have plans and they're like, oh, can I tag along? And then suddenly your plans get morphed into some other version of it that you did not want to do. So despite that, I love the fact that you basically said, no, I'm not gonna drive out of my way, and yes, you're gonna have to figure out something else. Because what they were asking is so ridiculous, and in my opinion, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my coworker a ride to work after he literally has been late to my car every morning consistently? Because right now, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so me and my friend are both 19-year-old males, and we also happen to work together. In fact, I got him a job at the small company where I worked. When I first recommended him to my boss, it was because I thought it would be a temporary position over the Christmas rush. But guess what? It wasn't. My main problem comes from the fact that he doesn't have a driver's license. I was okay with the idea of driving him to and from work for a couple of months, even though he has a habit of always being a couple minutes late. And this isn't a huge deal at our company because we get paid hourly for a job that doesn't have a set time frame. Lately though, he's been consistently at least 10 minutes late, late. And while this isn't a big deal for the boss, I hate sitting in my car in front of his house for that long. I like to get work over with as soon as possible. And while those 10 minutes aren't going to change my life, I would rather get 10 extra minutes at home than sitting in a car. But today I made up my mind that I wasn't going to ignore his tardiness. I texted him 20 minutes beforehand to ask if he would be ready in 20 minutes. He said yes, and I knew it was probably a slight exaggeration, so I took my time leaving the house. He literally got a good extra 5 to 10 minute start. But then when I got to his house, I texted him to tell him I was there, and lo and behold, I got no reply. Fast forward 10 minutes later and he finally appears. Usually he starts telling me about his day and I kind of get over my anger, but this time I stuck to what I told myself and I let him know that I didn't want to drive him anymore. I wasn't rude, I didn't yell or anything like that. I just said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to drive you to work anymore because you're always late." He then started saying that it wasn't his fault and that he was busy. In the conversation, I also mentioned that things would be different if he wasn't old enough to get a license and his parents hadn't promised him a car as soon as he got the driver's license. He then told me that every time I brought up the driver's license thing, it only stresses him out. He kind of phrased it like he thought I brought it up out of concern, which I do every once in a while, but this time it was because he's making me late when he could very well get a driver's license and drive himself. After I made my feelings known, the car ride was quiet. Then at work and on the way home, it was also quiet. So basically, I think he got mad about the fact that I was done waiting around for him, and I really don't think I'm in the wrong, but maybe I'm missing something here. What should I do? Oh man, this is a really annoying story. In my opinion, you did the right thing because this guy did not respect you. This guy is 10 minutes late every single time you pick him up. He doesn't respect you or your time, and he's always coming up with some kind of excuse. Also, this guy could easily get a license, like come on. And sure, he's probably stressed out about it, but this is the result of him being lazy and not getting it done. And yes, I really do think he's being lazy and he's just making up excuses. So no, you're not the jerk for refusing to give him a ride, because if I was in your shoes, I would be taking the same route, because his behavior, in my opinion, is unacceptable. Today, I messed up by making fun of my dad's past relationships, as he has had a lot. But because of this harmless joke, I find out that my mom cheated on my dad way back in the day. And now I literally am looking at everything in my life way differently. Here's what happened. Okay, so my dad recently got a girlfriend, and it seems like it's going well. I mean, he's been in way too many relationships for me to even keep count. With girlfriends, with boyfriends, I mean so many people. I was on a call with him today, I thought about him, and I decided it would be nice, and I made a joke that essentially pointed out just that. It was something to the effect of, "What is this, your 20th? The thing is, my dad is a serial gossiper. Despite me being his son, he will tell me all about his current relationships all the time. But I will emphasize current relationships, because apparently I didn't know about the absolute massive ton of relationships that ended badly for him. He started talking about why he's blown through so many partners, ignoring red flags, them cheating, stuff like that. Then he suddenly explained that when I was really young, he had a boyfriend that he stuck with for a while. They seemed perfect for each other, but then the boyfriend suddenly passed away in a car accident. At that point, he started getting really emotional, still going through all of his relationships in a random order. When he got to my mom, who I love a lot, he said that she actually cheated on him with some dude he was in a band with in his teenage years, and it made him feel like chopped liver. Now, I had no idea this apparently happened, and I'm pretty sensitive about cheating since my boyfriend of 4 years cheated on me. So I made him pause here and I made him explain further. After we ended our call, I called my mom up. I chatted normally for a bit before I finally brought up that my dad told me she cheated on him. And you know what? She said it was true, but he made a promise to not tell me, so she was very pissed off about that. She explained that the reason was because my dad was pretty awful to her after he found out that she was pregnant, and she just couldn't build the confidence to break up with him because somehow he'd always find ways to avoid the topic. Plus, this was the father of her child. It put more pressure on them to stay together. She said she knew it was wrong, but this was about 20 years ago, and she wouldn't be so hesitant to break up with a guy now. Anyways, I just sat here absorbing my parents' intense relationship drama and likely made the two of them mad at each other. I feel drained and it's still the morning, and I also don't know if me disregarding the fact that my mom cheated is me being a hypocrite when I usually despise cheating. So at this point, I'm honestly feeling so confused and I don't know what to do. Oh man, I can only imagine how much this sucks because you just learned a lot more information than you wanted to know. Like here you were just trying to have a good conversation with your dad and you make a silly joke and then suddenly you're like, oh wow, my mom's a cheater, this is awful. So yeah, this definitely is a sketchy situation and hopefully this all blows over in some kind of way because I can imagine this is going to be awkward for quite a while. An entitled client demands that I delete all their files on record as they are so unsatisfied with a sign that they literally approve for their business. So I decided to maliciously comply by deleting everything I had on file relating to their business, putting them in a situation that they truly regretted. Here's what happened. Quite Quite a few years ago, I was the senior graphic designer for a sign shop. This one customer was always a pain in the butt, but you get that and you try to keep the returning client happy. One day, the owner sent over a design for a new sign to go on a scoreboard as part of their sponsorship package at a local sports oval. And this meant we invoiced the football club and not them. Now, their logo is maroon and she wanted a red background when usually it was white. I told her that I wouldn't recommend it because, for one, you would not be able to read it from a distance, like across the other side of the oval, because the colors were too close, and secondly, it would look awful, even though I said that last part a bit more professionally. Usually, we would also just make the logo all white, but she insisted that she wanted the maroon one. Well, the sign was made and installed, and because I've been doing this job for a long time, it kinda looked like crap. But oh well, we were paid, the client was happy, and then we moved on. A few months later, she asked for another sign to replace it, as apparently it is hard to see from a distance, and her husband, also working in the business, is not happy. And it's like, yeah, go figure, lady. She also says that we should do it free of charge because it looks like crap and that it's my fault. And remember, the football club had paid for it. So I politely tell her no because guess what? She approved the design. So her husband writes me a harsh email about how I should never have made it in that color and that it's not in line with his company's brand, stating that I need to replace it. I got the feeling that his wife was blaming me, so I sent him the receipts, namely the whole email chain with my recommendations, as well as her insistence and approvals. I said no, I will not be replacing it free of charge. Shortly afterwards, the wife writes me another email saying they will never use my business again, demanding that I delete all their files right now. And I think to myself, thank you and done. Hallelujah, I will never have to deal with her ever again. Although deep down I knew that would not be the case, as we also sponsored that sports oval. The club used us for all their signs and printing, and I knew that I would need to have their logo for something sometime in the future, but despite all of that and knowing this, I decided to maliciously comply, deleting everything as they requested, because I knew that this would blow up in their face in a hilarious fashion. Now, we just can't use a JPEG or PNG file. We need special files that I had to set up for their business, all on brand to print consistently at the right color, like years worth of files, adverts, and signs. This means it can be very easy for us to just slot in pre-designed work when needed, literally a 5-minute job in some cases. Well, fast forward maybe a few months later, and the football club needs their program printed, with all the sponsors included, and it was at this moment my time came along to finally shine. I was truly so happy. I mentioned to my contact that I need this business logo and advert, and he said that he will get them to send it through. Now, I'm not sure why, but they never sent it through to me on time. It was so strange. So I sent printing proofs without this particular logo or advert added, and mentioned I still didn't have it, and if they wanted this printed in time, I needed it as soon as possible. I was kind of hoping that I could print it without them in it, but the football club was diligent, and they wanted them in. I then got a short message from this business saying to just add it in their usual advert, and it's like, what do you mean? The one you told me to delete a few months back? Sorry, I don't have it. You need to send me a print-ready file in this size. Well, fast forward about 2 weeks later, and I finally got the ad to put in, and they mentioned to keep it on file for future designs. In fact, I heard that they had to pay someone to design up something for them. They also got someone else to make up a new sign to replace the crap one. In fact, they would have had to pay for that too, as the club never ordered one through us. And now, anytime I drive past their business, I can't help but stick my finger up and just laugh at these people, because these guys were truly absolute morons. Yeah, these people truly are super stupid. First of all, they completely ruin their design, and then they sit there and try to be like, oh man, I can't believe it. This sign sucks. You need to change it for free. And it's like, no dude, I literally tried to change it last time, and you people reprimanded me. Why should I have to go through that again just to get your approval on something you shouldn't have done? And I don't blame the original poster. They literally got paid and everybody was happy at the end of the day, especially that idiot who was like, just do it exactly how I say. Like, hang on a second, this is not anybody's fault except for her. And now she's seriously trying to shift the blame on you? Like, no, I don't think so. So yeah, I love the way you got back at these people because their attitude was absolutely uncalled for. An entitled DoorDasher decides to mouth off at restaurant staff, causing the manager to drop the hammer on this idiot in a way that I'm sure he will truly never forget. Here's what happened. So I'm in between jobs after getting laid off in January, and I DoorDash to try and make ends meet during the job search. I know there can be a bit of a rivalry between Dashers and restaurant staff, and that some Dashers can be quite rude. I hate that. They make us all look bad, and they feed into a stereotype that I don't particularly appreciate or even fall into. I've also worked in fast food, fast casual, and casual dining, so I'm pretty sympathetic to staff stressors. Everyone is busy and stressed out, and we could all use a little more grace. And bear with me because this will be relevant. The other day, I picked up an order at a nicer sit-down restaurant, and I really like this place. The staff are great, and the food is good, so it's pretty popular. Plus, it costs enough that orders tend to tip really well. While I was paying for my order, another dasher came in and spoke to the very sweet young hostess, although I wasn't paying attention and I didn't hear what he said. A few minutes later, the manager, very much a lady of the kind who seems to cut from a certain abrasive cloth, especially associated with a particular woman's name, which is on brand for the area of the city I live in, by the way, comes out with my order and asks who it is. I raise my hand and I say, "That's me, thank you," and then she gives it to me. As she's doing this, she points to the other dashers and says, "I need to talk to you." And when she said this, my ears perked up. Do they know each other? As I'm taking my receipt picture required by the application, she points a finger in his face and totally lays into him. I don't remember word for word what she said, but it was something like, "Don't you speak that way to my staff ever again. These are teenagers and you are a grown man. You do not need to be talking to them like that. I will not have you treating them that way. It's been twice now and you're getting banned after this." And guys, she sounded every bit of a mother who has had it up to here with her naughty kid, and the mom voice was in full force. He then meekly mumbles, "Yes, ma'am," and then suddenly has a very interesting phone call to make while he waits for his order. Well, it honestly took me all that I had not to clap and cheer. I love seeing restaurant managers stand up for their staff. And like I said, I have no idea what he said to those nice young ladies, but it must have been really crappy. Most likely some run-of-the-mill rude dasher stuff, but I really hope it wasn't anything more sinister. And trust me, it would have really sucked to get banned from this restaurant, all because they have a great staff and orders pay very well. But if anything, it was probably deserved, because from the sounds of it, that guy sounded like an absolute jerk. Okay, I love it when managers stand up for their staff. In my opinion, the saying, "Oh, the customer's always right," it's like, no, they're never right. Customers don't know what they want, and if anything, they will be rude as a default. So the fact that this manager was not putting up with that crap for a second, in my opinion, is great. That's the mark of someone who should be in management, because if you have a manager that has your back, it quite literally makes your entire life so much easier. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My cousin has absolutely lost her mind, as she demands to know all of the information about the graduate programs I got accepted into, refusing to take no for an answer no matter what I say. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently got accepted into 2 graduate programs. I wanted to share the news with my cousin who helped me with the application, but I wanted to wait until I made a final decision. But apparently, she decided that my personal life was actually her business. From the start, I made one simple request. I would share my news when I was ready. I told her this directly. I even explained why, because in my experience, announcing things too soon sometimes backfires. Call it superstition, whatever, but I was clear. Well, she did not care. For weeks, she kept pushing, constantly asking if I had news, hinting that I must be hiding something. Eventually, I caved and I told her about one of them, since I wasn't ready to discuss the other one yet, but she did not believe it. Suddenly, she was playing detective, going behind my back to my sister, demanding to know what I was hiding. But after my sister shut her down, this set her off. I woke up the next morning to a series of very long text messages. Essentially, she was accusing me of hiding my acceptances. She accused me of being secretive, shady, and disrespectful for not sharing everything immediately. She said that because she helped me, she was somehow owed the news the second I got it. She also called my delay a slap in the face and a personal insult, claiming that I think she's jealous of me. Then, out of nowhere, she started listing all of her degrees and career accomplishments just to prove that she wasn't jealous. She said stuff like, "I have multiple degrees and an awesome career, so obviously your tiny little grad school acceptance means nothing to me." And it's like, excuse me, who said anything about jealousy? She literally invented that argument herself. At this point, I was just staring at my phone, trying to figure out how we got from "I just wanted to wait" to a full-blown psychodrama. And now, somehow, I feel guilty. Maybe I should have just told her earlier. Maybe I could have avoided all of this. But seriously, if she had just respected my very normal boundary, she would have gotten the full story anyways. So was I wrong for not sharing my news with her sooner, all because she helped me out? Because right now, I'm honestly incredibly frustrated. No, this is so weird. Who in their right mind would walk up to you and be like, "Give me all of your information right now. I demand to know right now. By the way, I'm not jealous. I have a better job than you." It's like, whoa, wait a second. Let's take a few steps back. It is completely idiotic for her to pretend like you have any obligation to give her any information. She did not get you that graduate program. They looked at your credentials and not her. From the sounds of it, all she did was help you with the application. Like, that is literally it. She didn't do any other hard work to get you there. She just helped you apply and then tries to act like, "Oh man, you have to tell me everything." And also, when it comes to her being like, "Well, I'm not jealous, you are." Like, obviously she's projecting, and yes, she absolutely is jealous. She's pissed off because you got accepted into 2 different graduate programs where she probably never got into into any. So yeah, you should not feel guilty at all. This lady's an idiot, and in my opinion, I really do think she sounds crazy, because her behavior is definitely not normal. My wife cheated on me earlier in the relationship, and now she is literally flaunting it in my face, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, my wife cheated on me at the beginning of our relationship, which by the way was 5 years ago. I forgave her, but asked if she could remove him from her social group out of respect, and she fought it, but eventually agreed. But back in last December, she added him again. All she said was, "I'm sorry this makes you feel bad." And then she went right back to her hometown for a couple of days and went completely AWOL, spent some nights out of my in-laws' house, and gave me some elaborate excuses. But I didn't buy it, so I confronted her. And it was there that she ended the relationship over text messaging. She came back home after a couple of days and said that she was going to move out. It took her 2 months to actually do it, and I ended up helping her move out and then moved out myself, since I didn't want to be in our old apartment alone. Now, we haven't filed for divorce yet, but we have been living separately for 3 weeks. Well, today she posted on social media a picture showing that she's traveling abroad with the guy she cheated on me with, and clearly she wanted me to see it. I feel like it's totally disrespectful. Needless to say, I gave her the stars and the moon for over 5 years of marriage, so I can't understand this move of hers. So please, I really could use some help or some perspective here. My current reaction is to have no reaction at all, and I'm honestly wondering if this is okay, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I really don't know why you haven't blocked her yet, because this is crazy behavior. Your wife of 5 years clearly was never faithful, and she is showing you exactly the kind of person that she really is. And that's not fair for you. You don't deserve that. You literally have done everything you can to make your marriage work, only for her to turn around and just tarnish all of it overnight. Like, that really sucks. I don't care who you are. So seriously, block her and move on with your life, because she clearly had no interest in keeping that marriage going in the first place. Am I the jerk for not letting my dad's girlfriend walk through my room, even though my room has the front door to the house in it, and she always wants to go out the front whenever she's upset? Because right now I feel guilty and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old male, and I live with my dad, his girlfriend, and my youngest brother for the past 3 or 4 years. We recently moved into a new house around August of 2023, and my new room is like a mud room, even though we only use it as a bedroom for me, but it has the front door, which is fine because my family only uses the back door really, and I can just grab whatever food or packages are delivered and distribute them accordingly. Anyways, my dad's girlfriend, let's call her Stacy, as well as my dad always get into arguments when he's drunk. We have a small house, so she has nowhere to go but outside when they argue or their closet. Well, sometimes my dad is on the back porch drinking with my uncles, and even though they will ignore her, when she walks through them to go around the house to sit on the front steps, she would rather go through the front door. Well, since the front door is in my room, Stacy needs to ask me, since you know, this is a privacy thing, and because I would have to move a bunch of things and leave the door and screen door unlocked and open for her, even though she always does ask. Now, I normally let her do it, but a few months ago when this incident happens, she asked me and I just said no, because I just didn't want to have to move all of my stuff, and I was stressed out, and I wanted to have personal conversations with my friends without worrying that she's snooping around. And for reference, she loves to eavesdrop, and had stolen my sister's girlfriend's things when my sister and her girlfriend live with us. Also, I have anxiety of leaving the front door unlocked and open, which only increased with my stress state. Anyways, when I said no, she cursed me out and said I was being inconsiderate before storming out of my room and almost slamming the door. My friend said that I wasn't a jerk and that it was my room, so I had the right to say no, and it's just my people-pleasing personality making me feel guilty. And yet Stacy didn't talk to me for almost a month afterwards, and our relationship is still strained. So at this point, I'm internally torn, and I honestly don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. First off, I think you drew the short stick when it came to picking rooms in this house. Like, I don't know about you, but I would hate having the front door as my bedroom. Like, that sucks, and I really would not like that. But also, you have every right to tell Stacy that no, she can't just walk through your room, because guess what? It's your room. And from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like she's a private person at all. So yes, I think you were completely in the right for telling her to go somewhere else, because that sounds like a very annoying thing to deal with. An entitled old jerk decides to treat me like crap at my job and out in public. So I decided to get some stupid petty revenge by getting back at her in such a way that truly matches the petty nature of her original problems. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to work in customer service for a small town local utility. Back then, if you hadn't paid in full by the due date, you would get a late charge the next day with no grace period. We would, however, waive it one time every 12 months, but only if you would ask us. Most people were understanding, albeit upset, but every so often you'd get the people who couldn't believe the audacity. Now, this little old lady who we will call Valerie came in to complain about her late charge. At first, she was trying to be passive-aggressive about it, saying things like, "I can't believe you give me a late charge for paying 1 day late. I mailed it on time. Must have been lost in the mail. It's fine, I guess I'll pay though. So then the guilt stage slowly comes along. I've never been late. I know I sent it on time. Is there anything you can do? I then checked and we couldn't waive the charge because she already had one waived in the last 12 months. And with that brought on the entitlement stage. I've lived here for so many years. I've never been late. You can do this for me one time. I've never had any problems with paying. Don't you know who I am? But sorry, lady, we make an exception for you, then we have to make them for all the other customers. Eventually, she pays and then she leaves. Well, fast forward and I'm in line to check out at Trader Joe's. This was pre-COVID, but even back then, I like personal space and not being right up on the people in line. So the person before me moves up to start getting rung up, and I stay exactly where I was. A few seconds later, I hear, "You know you can move up, don't you?" And when I turn around, I see that it's Valerie. And it's like she's giving me so much snark for 1 foot of forward progress. A few years later, I was at the funeral of my great aunt, and the church isn't that big at all, but I also have a pretty big family, and adding the fact that she'd been pretty prominent in town for several decades, the turnout was quite large, and there were several overflow seats outside the main hall. I was seated outside with some elderly relatives, and when it came time to give the incense offering, there were several lines of people converging into a single file line. As I was guiding my relatives towards the line, I saw Valerie, and it was here that I decided to get some petty revenge. I happened to make it into the line right before her, and then I stepped in front of her and decided to let my aunt, my uncle, maybe my sister, and maybe a couple other family members also step in line ahead of me, and I made her wait behind us. And sure, it's stupid petty revenge, but considering the way she's talked to me before, I feel I responded in exactly the stupid ways that she's responded to me. Yeah, I like this story because it sounds like Valerie absolutely deserves this kind of treatment. I mean, I'm all about trying to get the best deal possible and like having some kind of complaint towards customer service, but it seems like instead of paying the fine that she knew she had, she decided to try and make you feel bad for her not paying her bill, not to mention her being a complete jerk in Trader Joe's. So yeah, I love the fact that you cut in line in front of her because that probably sent a very clear message to her, and hopefully she won't forget that anytime soon. An entitled jerk demands that I keep my cat out of the public park, even going as far as threatening to call the police on me since he is so sick of the cats in this neighborhood. Here's what happened. Okay, so there's a small park a few minutes from my house that I take my cat to for walks. Now, I always keep my cat on a leash when we're out, but this wasn't enough for a man who was there with his kid. I got freaked out when he started yelling at me, demanding I leave and keep my dirty cat inside, or he would call the cops on me. All I could do was look at him in confusion. I then blurted out by saying, "Excuse me?" Well, the guy went on a tirade about how cats are destroying the neighborhood and how stupid cat owners were letting their cats run wild, killing birds, pooping everywhere, and clawing up trash bags. For the record, my baby is an indoor cat, and he hates being outside unless we're going out for walks, but I knew exactly what this man was raging about. There are folks in our neighborhood who have outdoor cats, and I see them walking around sidewalks and streets. Part of our town can't use trash bins since trash goes in the alley, and some alleyways are really narrow, so they literally just don't fit. The trash collectors just drive through the alleyway picking up trash bags and tossing them into the garbage truck, and sometimes cats get into them overnight and tear them up, leaving lots of trash in the alleyways. I'm guessing this man was upset about his trash being clawed up, or maybe he found cat poop in his yard, I'm not really sure, but it was still such an uncalled for attack, as well as extremely entitled to demand I leave a public park because I was walking my cat. He threatened to call the police again, and I snapped back at him, daring him to call the cops. I told him they would probably give him a ticket for calling in a non-emergency and wasting police resources. This seemed to finally shut him up, and he huffed and grumbled and left with his kid, but I'm honestly still astonished by this guy's attitude. Yeah, this guy's an idiot. He literally was contradicting himself from the start. He was literally complaining about outdoor cats, and yet here you have an indoor cat on a leash. This cat isn't running around all over the place. This cat is literally chained up and you're walking it responsibly. It's like, dude, you're literally pushing your blame on the wrong person. So good for you for standing up for yourself and at least telling this guy he's an idiot for even daring to call the police. Because in my opinion, I think he was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for cutting off my sister after we had a massive fight over my dad's will? Because right now, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad won about $60,000 gambling 3 months ago. Not life-changing millions, but a nice chunk of change for retirement. And after this, he updated his will. My sister found out he's leaving his house to me and the cash to her, which is roughly equivalent value, and she flipped out, saying that she should get half the house too because she has kids and needs stability, even though she owns her own place already. When I pointed out that dad specifically set it up this way because I've been helping with his care for years while she visits like twice a year, she accused me of manipulating him. Then she called dad screaming about how I have poisoned him against her. And you know what? My dad is devastated. He thought this was fair. I get the family home that I already already helped maintain, and she gets liquid assets. Now he's stressed about causing problems and is considering changing it to make her happy. But I told her that she's being greedy and that this isn't even relevant yet since dad is still alive and healthy. She's now telling the whole family that I'm trying to steal her inheritance. So you know what? Yesterday I blocked her number. My mom, who's divorced from my dad, thinks that I'm overreacting and that I should just talk it out. But I'm so disgusted that I can't even look at my sister right now. So am I overreacting by cutting contact with her? Am I missing something here? Because honestly, I'm not sure what to do. Oh man, your sister's being super entitled. And the fact that she's trying to scream from the rooftops that you somehow poison him against her, like that is honestly so weird. And it really makes me think that she's showing her hand. Like she wants this to be a problem because she wants all of it when he passes away, even though he's not even dead yet. Like this guy literally is still alive and kicking. And your sister's going around and being like, wow, I can't believe this. So no, I don't think you're overreacting. And honestly, I would probably cut her off as well, because the way she's treating you seriously is not fair, and you don't deserve it in the slightest. My girlfriend cheated on me with 5 different guys, but now she claims that she is pregnant with my child. And even though I feel that I should reject her and push her away, this woman was still the love of my life for 3 years. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Me and my girlfriend had been together for 3 years. We met in college, and those 3 years had been some of the best years of my life. She was my first girlfriend, and in my eyes, she was the girl of my dreams. She was funny, confident, and incredibly beautiful. Our relationship was a healthy one, I thought, because we would go on dates together, and we wouldn't argue as much, almost never, and that made me think that we were happy together and we had no problem. Well, that is until the day of our 3rd anniversary together. I had planned to do an incredibly romantic dinner for her. Very cheesy stuff like rose petal candles and a romantic dinner in my apartment, and I had bought her some very expensive earrings, which I worked double shifts at my job to get for her. When she came to the apartment, she looked beautiful. She was wearing a very beautiful dress, and I was in awe. But then I saw a little bruise on her neck, and at first I was concerned about what happened to her until I realized that it was a hickey. I then confronted her about it, and she told me I was just being a jealous, insecure child, which seriously deeply hurt me. So to make myself feel better, I asked her if she could let me see her phone, and that made her go absolutely crazy with insults. So many insults that I don't even want to mention them. It made me so suspicious, so I decided to take her phone sneakily while she was eating, and I went and locked myself in the bathroom and I checked her phone. Well, what I saw was horrible. She had all kinds of sketchy videos with different guys, and all these really spicy text messages and all this other stuff. We were in a 3-year relationship, and this is what she did to me. I was so broken, and I confronted her about it, and she instantly bawled her eyes out, saying how sorry she was and how she regretted it and that they didn't mean anything to her. I was so broken that tears didn't fall from my eyes, and I was just gonna leave her until she started kissing me from how sad she was. Look, I wish I could say I pushed her away and I told her to get lost, but she was the love of my life. I felt so vulnerable that I fell through temptation, and we ended up spending quality time together that night, if you know what I mean. The next morning, I felt so ashamed that I left, and I left her a note on the pillow saying that I wanted to end things and never wanted to see her again. I felt so dirty that morning that I honestly hated myself so much. Fast forward to some time later, and I went to live in a very cheap apartment, falling into a deep depression until one day my girlfriend found me. And to say that I was shocked was an understatement, because the only person that knew I was living in that apartment was my mom, so I legitimately thought I was going insane. Apparently, she had called my mom and asked her where I was to try and fix things, because as a side note, she and my mom were good friends. And so my mom told her. My girlfriend then basically started saying how bad she felt and how much she regretted what she did, and how I was her one and true love, which was absolute BS. I wasn't gonna take any more of this until she gave me the biggest news out of everything. She said she was pregnant and that it was my child. Now, I didn't believe her because she was a lying jerk, of course, but she clearly told me that all the guys she has been with behind my back all wore protection and that she was on birth control. But that night that we spent time together, I didn't use protection, so it pretty much confirms that it's my baby. Now, she said that she wants the baby and she wants to raise it with me. She also says that she wants to change and start couples therapy so that we can heal and be better, so that our baby could have a good family. And honestly, I really think that she means it. And right now, I don't know what to do. I love her and I know I shouldn't, but she was my world for 3 years. But at the same time, I keep remembering how she was with all of these men, all while we were together, and it just honestly destroys me. I hate her, but I love her at the same time. And I don't want our baby to be raised in a separated family. What should I do? Okay, there is no way the original poster is believing this lady, right? She slept around with a bunch of other guys and is now only going back to the original poster because she knows for a fact the rest of them are saying, no, I'm not taking care of this kid. Or they challenged her on being like, wait, is is it really my baby? Because guess what? A DNA test will absolutely prove whether it is or isn't. So in my opinion, I would not take any of this seriously. I would demand a DNA test of some kind and happily pay for that because this lady is a lying jerk. She literally went behind your back in a way that I believe is completely unacceptable, and I seriously think it would be a mistake to welcome her back in any kind of way. My toxic entitled friend starts spreading false rumors about me in a way that is seriously damaging to my reputation. So I decide to get some revenge by quite literally ruining their lives in a way that they truly will never recover from. Here's what happened. So me and one of my best friends have been friends for nearly a decade. For reference, I'm a 22-year-old male and he's a 21-year-old male. We both share the same group of friends at a venue we both attended, but most of them were closer to him and had known him for longer than they had known me. We had, prior to this revenge, had a disagreement with him claiming I had lied about something which he wouldn't even tell me about, as well as me calling him out for being constantly hours late whenever I arranged to spend time with him, and me finding out that he was leaving me out of group hangouts secretly. Now, I found out that after our argument, he went around the venue spreading rumors, and mind you, he could not find a scrap of evidence of anything. So I asked the staff of the venue that we attended to ask him to stop, but forgetting they were close friends of his, they made up excuses which they refused to tell me and banned me from the venue. And it was at this moment that my revenge began. First, I got in contact with a lawyer who drafted and sent him a cease and desist notice. He initially responded to accuse me of faking the letter, but was then sent a signed email copy and asked by the lawyer to advise to his position, at which point he left my lawyer on read. And it was on the next day that I found out he was still spreading rumors. So, unknown to him at the time, I took screenshots of years worth of text messages and was given the phone number for the Department of Fraud. As it turns out, I had collected information about him taking study assistant payments for an entire year while not attending class. This alone could mean that he has to pay back $10,000+ on top of a substantial fine as well as possible prison time. Secondly, I had text messages from him using, if you know what I mean, and distributing said illegal substance from the house that he rents with a few former friends. So I, of course, sent these to the police and had a long phone conversation with them about his substance use. Luckily for me, using some of my connections, I found the address and contact information of his landlord, and I'm arranging to send a detailed letter with all of the evidence in tow. Third, I had text messages of him admitting to drinking and driving, and he is now being watched by the police on weekends when he goes out, because on top of the drunk driving, he has lost his license prior due to speeding and causing an accident. Now, to add to my revenge against him, I felt the need to take revenge on the venue manager who ignored the harassment against me and instead kicked me out to spare his friend's punishment. So I found 5 people willing to testify that this manager uses the venue to buy and sell illegal substances, has told people to drink and drive in order to get more sales, as well as spiking sober people's drinks with alcohol. On top of recording 5 statements from different people and sending them to the police, I also filed a liquor complaint form and sent that to the appropriate authorities. Now, to add to this even further, I found out who lied on my former friend's behalf to get me removed and who was spreading rumors about me, and then I found screenshots and people willing to testify against them about the substance dealing and various other incidents. And now it's just a waiting game. And for those of you who think that I may have gone too far by getting him in trouble with the government for fraud or even the police for substances, I sent him a personal letter with a lawyer's statement saying that I would not proceed with charges of any kind should he apologize and tell the venue staff he lied in order to get me removed. But since he left me on red, I see that as a warning ignored, which really justifies why I'm choosing to take this route. Wow, I love this story because you know what? These people were playing with fire from the beginning. Seriously, these guys were not good people in the slightest, and they very clearly pissed off the wrong person. Like, what in the world was going on at that venue? First of all, I would never go there again if that really is what's going on there. Like, that sounds like a sketchy place and not a good thing in the slightest. So to me, I think the fact that you're reporting all these people, in my opinion, honestly is not a bad idea, because these people were very clearly bad-mouthing you in a way that was damaging to your reputation, and I truly think that you have every right to defend that no matter what. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend overheard a comment made by my mom that he literally did not like, and now as a result, he is refusing to talk to me about it and is even going as far as saying that we're done. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, long story short, I was on my phone with my boyfriend and was going out to grab some dinner. My mom made a comment saying, "Hey, I know you have a boyfriend, but is there any cute guys in your classes?" And when I heard this, I was honestly so caught off guard by this question. Another family member was in the room, so I knew it was a question more so also coming from them because they didn't know yet how serious my relationship was. And so I responded with, of course not. For some backstory, my boyfriend got cheated on a lot in the past, so he has very bad trust issues and gets really insecure that I'm going to be talking to other guys and all this other stuff. After my mom made this comment, I immediately knew he was gonna be mad. He went on pause on the class and literally refused to talk to me. For 20 minutes, I was begging him to say something, but he simply wouldn't. He finally said something when I was trying to get him to explain what he was feeling, and he thinks that since my mom made this comment, then I must have been talking to her about the topic before, which I definitely had not. I love my boyfriend, and with knowing how much he has a hard time trusting, I never want to make any comments to make him think that I want anyone else because I only want him. Well, he literally wouldn't talk to me and ended up going to sleep angry, and now I'm so overly stressed out and I can't sleep. I understand where he's coming from, but I also think that I don't deserve to be treated with disrespect over a comment that I didn't even make. Literally, the last thing he said to me before he fell asleep was him saying, "We're done." He is also bipolar, and so sometimes in arguments, he says things like this that he doesn't mean. Usually, once he's good again, he tells me that he doesn't actually want to break up with me and that he just gets in his head. But this time it's just different because usually I force him to talk about his feelings and resolve them immediately, but this time with him just going to bed without talking about it, I'm stressing out a lot and scared that he's actually going to want to be done. Fast forward and it's the next day and he still has not barely talked to me, and now he's at work, so I don't have any updates so far. So right now I'm honestly very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I think your boyfriend is being super immature. He is literally breaking up with you over a comment that your mom made, which you obviously don't reciprocate, and instead of talking to you about it, he's deciding to take the immature route and give you the cold shoulder, which by the way is incredibly toxic. There's never a good reason to do that, and that only makes things worse. And in my opinion, it kind of seems like he's wanting you to beg for forgiveness, as if you're the one that did anything wrong when in reality no one did anything. Like, does this guy even want to be in a relationship? It doesn't sound like he should be in one in the first place, especially if this is how he handles conflict, which by the way is not normal. That is like super toxic behavior and you don't deserve that. So I can only speak for myself, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would take him seriously when he says that we're done. I would pack it up and say, okay, I guess we're over, and I would force him to come to the table and figure this out. Because anybody who uses that as some kind of excuse just to punish their partner, in my opinion, does not deserve to have a partner, because that is absolutely unfair. My husband keeps interrupting me and answering questions for me in front of our friends, and it's now gotten to a point where I am seriously so frustrated because I really don't think there's any solution to this problem. Here's what happened. Okay, when I have a gathering with common friends that are married, my husband usually interrupts me when my friends are asking about my adventure or my life in general. My husband doesn't really do any sports, and he does not have many activities or interests other than watching cooking shows and a couple of other shows on YouTube. He does not have a lot of common interests with men. He likes to mingle with women because he likes to cook. The problem is when my girlfriends or friends are asking me about my adventures or even just my regular life, my husband will interrupt me answering and talks about my adventure, which he did not participate in, and about my life in front of me. For example, I love climbing, and I finally completed some big goal climbs. I was mingling in a party, and a friend asked me how my climb was. My husband, who does not climb or exercise, answers for me and said that the climb is easy. My friend even said to him in surprise that he thought my husband does not climb, and my husband just confidently says yes, and then continues talking without even realizing that it might be a hint. I then just leave the conversation. I mean, not only did he interrupt, but he also undermined my big goal and training for the past 2 to 3 years. This also extends about my regular daily life, stuff like kids' activities, restaurants that I tried, etc. For instance, my girlfriend will visit me and ask me about what I do for cooking, and my husband interrupts me and says that I don't go to the kitchen. I cook breakfast for my kids every day. I just don't cook for him because no matter what, he only eats what he cooks. I mean, he is very picky after all. I told my husband about this multiple times, and he says sorry, but he keeps repeating this. From my experience, my husband will never change, and instead, it's me who always needs to change. Also, he's not very self-aware at all. I told him to find more hobbies so he can relate and talk with more people, but according to him, he has a lot of hobbies. I don't tell him that it is related to this issue because then he will get defensive. If I gave him like an eye or hand signal, he literally just won't notice or understand. I mean, there are other things when I literally told him on the moment, please do not do this, and then he will still do it. And then later on, he will say that he misheard or misunderstood. I cannot come up with any solution other than I should just avoid going to parties with common friends with him. But what is the point of going to a party if I'm going to be hurt or pissed off afterwards? I am thinking I can try to tell him him that we rotate if there is a friend gathering, but I'm just not sure what to tell my friends in the meantime. What should I do? Wow, your husband sounds incredibly annoying. The fact that he's interrupting you and like always talking over you and never letting you talk, like that would be super frustrating for me. I despise when people do this, especially about subjects they know nothing about. Like that's the part that would drive me up a wall. So hopefully some kind of solution can come about because of this, because this is really unfair for you, as your husband, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. My idiotic job demands that I wear my work uniform at all times, causing me to literally pass out from heat stroke, resulting in me going to the hospital for 2 days. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened a few years ago, and I no longer work with this company because this story isn't even the first time where I thought my personal health and safety was taking the backseat to the requirements of this company. I work for a security company, and my assignment was the vehicle depot lot for the gas company. My duties were to sit in this aluminum trailer shack in the corner of the lot and monitor for suspicious activity. In Philadelphia, many of these areas were targeted by catalytic converter thieves. I was also supposed to make a patrol every hour to ensure the security of the site. Now, other than my patrols and to use the bathroom, I was not permitted to leave the box for any reason. My uniform was my usual long-sleeve button-up shirt and long pants, but also I was required to wear a boiler suit and hard hat for safety from things I might encounter on my patrols. Originally, I only wore my boiler suit and hard hat to do my patrols because it was July and the air conditioner in the box didn't work. However, my site supervisor came for inspection and threatened to fire me if I wouldn't wear the boiler suit and hard hat while sitting in the box as well. So I did just that. The end of July and beginning of August in 2022 was one of the worst heat waves in Philadelphia's history. On a good day, it was 140 degrees Fahrenheit plus inside the box itself, as it was made of aluminum and sitting in direct sunlight for the duration of my shift. Well, 3 days in, and I passed out standing in the men's restroom from advanced heat stroke. The gas company staff called an ambulance for me, and I was airlifted to the hospital. I mean, traffic in this part of the city, by the way, was notoriously terrible, especially late in the afternoon and early evening, and in this instance, every second counted. At the hospital, my body temperature was 105 degrees, and my pulse was a blistering 147. It took the doctors 2 days to get my temperature back to normal, as well as address all the damages the excess heat had done to my body. While I was getting life-saving care at the hospital, my abandoned post was infiltrated by 3 men who stole the catalytic converters from 18 vehicles. The parent company was livid, and when I was inquired as to why I wasn't at my post when the theft occurred, my doctor at the hospital took the phone and informed them of my condition upon arrival at the hospital. In the aftermath, I was reassigned. The broken air conditioner in the box was replaced with a 40,000 BTU unit that required a separate generator to power. And a few weeks later, my security company lost its contract with the gas company after my replacement fell asleep in the box, while the thieves returned to steal another 20 catalytic converters. But honestly, I'm glad I got away from those people because they literally put my life in danger. Wow, this company did not care about you at all. They literally made you sit in a box that's made of metal in the middle of a heat wave and tried to be like, man, you need to stay there no matter what. And even after the theft occurred when you weren't there, they tried to make it seem like you abandoned your post and were actively trying to find some reason to pin this on you. And that is crazy in my opinion. Like, this is why people hate their jobs nowadays. They work for people that literally just don't care about them. They only care about their stupid converters instead of the person sitting in the box baking to death. So yes, I'm glad you don't work there either because these people seriously suck, as they did not care about your safety in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not following my husband's family tradition by naming our future son in the way that they demand it? Because right now I feel like we've upset the entire extended family, and at this point we don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband comes from a very traditional family. While we disagree with his family on many things, it has never really been an issue until now. I'm currently 8 months pregnant, and my husband and I couldn't be happier, as we've been trying at this for a while. Since I first found out I was pregnant, we've been discussing names for our child. In my husband's family, the tradition wants the child to be named after his grandfather. And basically, firstborn men in his family only have one of 2 names, James or Henry. My husband's grandfather was James, so his name is James too. My husband's father is called Henry, so our child should be as well, and so on and so forth. But my husband and I didn't really feel like calling our child Henry, and although it's a beautiful way to honor family members, we really wanted our child to have a name that would be personal, that would truly be his. So we chose another name, and decided to wait until after the birth to reveal it to everybody. Well, this week, my mother-in-law came to visit us and help us set up for the baby. She brought us some presents, amongst which was a bunch of clothing on which she hand-embroidered the name Henry. I said that it was nice and I thanked her for it, but told her that we wouldn't be naming our child Henry, which is something something that we had already told her in the past. She then started insisting and saying that it was a tradition, so it had to be that way. But I explained to her that we would rather give our child a name that we chose and that Henry could be his middle name. Well, she immediately went to my husband and started saying things like, "You're not going to let her do that to our family," and making it very dramatic, saying that I was breaking a tradition that went back hundreds of years. And honestly, I'm not even sure about that. My husband tried to explain that we both agreed on the name and all the reasons why we made the choice, but she simply wouldn't listen. She suggested that we name him Henry on paper as his legal name and then called him something else, but I thought that would be confusing for him and told her that he would be named what we chose. Well, she kept begging my husband and saying that I was ruining the family tradition, and at one point I lost it, which is partially to blame on my hormones, I think. And I told her straight up that it was our child, so we did what we wanted, and we didn't have to follow a stupid tradition. After that, she stormed out, and my husband has since received text messages from his father and sister accusing me of making his mother feel really bad and some other stuff that I don't really remember. I get the importance of tradition, and it can be really beautiful, but also I feel like that shouldn't be an obligation, and it's okay to change things. We won't change our baby's name because we're really set on that, but maybe we were wrong for not following the tradition. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm mentally exhausted by this drama, because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, I cannot fully describe how much I hate traditions like this, where the family locks you into doing a certain thing a certain way simply because the family's been doing this for generations. I find that crap so annoying, and I don't blame you for breaking free of that, because you know what? You have it 100% right. This is your kid. You can name your kid whatever you want. And guess what? If you don't want to name it Henry, then you don't have to. These people cannot force you to name it something that absolutely is outside of what you guys want to name this kid, and that's final. Like literally, no one has any other say in this. Like, why should you be locked into some stupid name, all because some very deceased relative decided to do this and it somehow caught on? So no, you're not in the wrong, and you're definitely not the jerk here, because the extended family you're dealing with are obnoxious. I mean, seriously, just look at what they're getting upset about. They're actually getting pissed off that you're not following along and naming this kid what they want it to be named. And that, in my opinion, is incredibly manipulative and a giant red flag. And that is not something that I think you ever should have to deal with. My friend's entitled mother claims that her daughter's behavior is all because of me, stating that I'm a bad influence and that I'm the reason she's making all the wrong choices. But now, after all these years, she's now coming to me asking me to be a good influence in her daughter's life. And I'm honestly so blown away that things changed so quickly, because the way she treated me in the past was absolutely ridiculous. Here's what happened. When I was growing up, I had two friends that were the same age. We were literally babies together and continued to hang out as young girls. One of my friends moved to another state, so I visited with her less often and became closer to the other friend, who I will call Nina for the sake of the story. Nina was the oldest child and only girl and was extremely spoiled. Her parents, especially her mother, regarded her as the most beautiful and special child in the world. Her mom and my mom were friends, and her mom had hurt my mom's feelings by indicating that I looked weird as a child because I favored my dad. My mom was offended and didn't think Nina was all that cute either, but kept it all to herself. And by the way, she told me this later and didn't escalate it at the time. I was raised in a highly structured and disciplined home, so besides the occasional bad attitude, I wasn't much of a problem. I am an only child, but we struggled a lot. I dealt with homelessness multiple times growing up, as well as helping with caregiving for multiple ill relatives. I'm grateful to these experiences as they made me mature and grounded quite early. Nina, however, continued to be pampered and given whatever she wanted. The word no was foreign to her. But you know what? I didn't care, as it was none of my business. As we became teens, Nina started sneaking out of her house and messing around with boys. Her family is religious, so this was completely prohibited. Nina had told me that she had a boyfriend but nothing else. And at the time, I wasn't interested in boys, especially not the oily, irritating ones that were around me. One day, Nina's mom called my mom very upset. She then informed my mom that I was no longer allowed around Nina or even welcome to their home. My mom asked why, of course, and that's when Nina's mom accused me of being a bad influence on her daughter. She said that Nina had been caught sneaking out of the house and that she had obviously learned that behavior from me. Well, my mom was infuriated and told her that I did not act in such ways. Her daughter's misbehavior was not my fault, but a result of years of spoiling and lackadaisical discipline. This argument went nowhere, and ultimately Nina and I weren't allowed to be friends anymore. I was devastated and angry. I never snuck out or acted out in such ways, and yet somehow I was the one being blamed, because to Nina's parents, she was perfect and couldn't possibly be at fault. It just had to be the ugly poor kid that taught the perfect and beautiful Nina this behavior. A couple of years go by and Nina becomes a teenage mom. Apparently, she admits to her mom that her behavior is her own doing, but of course, we never receive an apology or a phone call, and only only find this out later. Well, in present day, I'm around 19 years old, and Nina has a toddler. And when my parents and I go to get our taxes done, we run into Nina's parents. They were happy to see us and very polite and friendly, and it was then that Nina's mom looks surprised when she sees me. She then says, "Oh my god, you actually grew up to be so pretty." And I think to myself, okay, thank you, I guess. Like, I was never ugly, lady, but I digress. My mom is visibly annoyed at the comment, but she still remains polite. She asked about my life and finds out I'm doing well, and I will be starting college soon. She asked for our contact information and we exchange numbers. Later, she calls and opens up about Nina being a bit out of control, and she sees that I have it together and wonders if I can be a positive person in Nina's life now. And when we heard this, my mom and I were dumbfounded. She can't be serious, right? She still had not apologized, but hinted that Nina had admitted to being sneaky for some years. My mom said it was up to me if I wanted to reconnect, but I owed them nothing. Now, I attempted to speak with Nina, but on our first conversation, she complained that her parents had purchased her a new car, but she wanted a truck. They didn't listen to her once, and she was enraged. She also said her grandma had purchased her daughter unattractive toddler clothes and not the luxury brand ones that she was accustomed to. Unfortunately, it was then that I realized we had nothing in common, and we never spoke to each other ever again after that day. Wow, what a spoiled brat, but also what an awful mother. Nina's mom is a piece of garbage for blaming that crappy behavior on you. I can't stand people who do that, who literally are ignoring the way their kids are acting, but still find some way to look around and be like, it's not my fault, it's that person's fault. Meanwhile, you're sitting there like, wait a second, I didn't do anything. Just because you're friends with her and associated her loosely in some kind of way doesn't mean that you are solely responsible for her behavior. That literally falls on Nina's shoulders and nobody else. So seriously, I don't blame you for kicking Nina to the curb. She clearly does not have her life together, and I don't think your involvement in her life is gonna fix that in the slightest. An entitled customer steals my food that I was gonna take home for my restaurant job, as he literally takes it off the rack that was not meant for him and walks right out the door. And I'm honestly so pissed off because I seriously cannot stand dealing with people like this. Here's what happened. Okay, so I just finished my shift and ordered boneless wings to go, and I wanted them extra wet so that they wouldn't be dry by the time I got home. I went up front to the host stand to get my stuff together and leave, just like I always do, and I set my to-go bag down on the bottom shelf of the tall rack next to the host stand. And mind you, this bag has a bright yellow ticket on it that has my name all over it, and it's on the order taped on the bag. And also, this rack is used for to-go orders, but only the top shelf. The other 3 shelves are regularly used for storage. We also have a sign on top of the rack that says to not take the to-go orders off the rack and to let the host do it. I stepped away for maybe a minute to call somebody, and I was gone for less than 5 minutes. And when I came back, my food was gone. Now, the host just came up front, so she had gone to the kitchen after I stepped away, and I asked her if she had seen my food, and she was really confused. Then she said it was possible that a customer could have taken it. She said that she had checked a guy out while I was away and told him that it would still be a few minutes for his order, and she went to the kitchen to check on the order. Well, he was gone now, so we called him. I listened to the whole call, and she told him that he had the wrong order and he needed to come back because his order was still being made. Well, this genius said to me, I'm gonna go home first and then we'll make sure that it's the wrong order. And it's like, no, we're telling you that it's the wrong order. You just left. All you have to do is turn around. Well, 10 minutes later, he calls us back, and then he says to us, after taking a look at the order and the ticket on the bag, it's clear that it's the wrong order. And it's like, yeah, that is what we told you. He came back and didn't even apologize for taking someone else's order. He just barely stuck his head inside. He handed it over, grabbed his, and made sure he got his ranch before leaving without another word. And I was so upset about it. By the time I got home, the wings were dry. This guy is a regular to-go order customer who took the bag that was at the bottom of the shelf at the floor and assumed it was his after being told his wasn't ready. Then he just left without telling anybody. I mean, seriously, what goes through people's heads when they do things like this? He looked and talked to us like he was the one being inconvenienced. I told another host about this, and they said it was perfectly fine and nothing wrong about it, but that they're only saying that because they like him. So seriously, I'm still so annoyed by this, and I really just cannot get over it. Oh yeah, this really pisses me off. I would be so upset if someone stole my food after a long day of working. Like, you even specially order that exactly the way you like them so that you could actually enjoy them when you got home. And the fact that your friend is trying to be like, oh, it's totally fine, you're just being weird. Like, no dude, you're being weird. This level of entitlement is so annoying. The customer literally just heard, hey, your stuff is still being made, let me check on it. And instead of waiting, they're like, oh look, a free bag, I'm gonna take that. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Did we not just have a conversation literally 10 seconds ago that said, hey, I'll be right back, I'm gonna check on your order and see where it's at? Like, seriously, what's happening right now? Did this guy suddenly have like convenient amnesia where he's like, oh look, a bag, let me get it and go home? So no, you're not overreacting or anything like that, and I think your friend's an idiot for trying to be like, oh, it's okay, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. Because yes, everything is wrong with this situation. And the fact that he didn't even have the decency to try and be like, oh, I'm so sorry for taking that bag or apologize at all, says absolutely everything you would ever need to know about that guy. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. The person I was seeing got married right behind my back, and after 5 months of dating them, I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been seeing someone for around 5 months now. We started out casual, but it was starting to feel like it was getting more serious. I thought we clicked well, we had fun, and we enjoyed spending time together. He made plans with me and was starting to share more intimate things with me. He seemed very sweet, level-headed, smart, I mean, you name it, and he had it. I thought he was a catch, but about a month ago, he seemed off and said he was going through a hard time with work and was just stressed out. He was not really answering calls or text messages like he normally would, and he went totally dark for a few days. But then eventually it all went back to normal. But unfortunately, that was a lie. It turns out about a month ago, he got married to another woman, and I have no idea about her age or any of those details. Despite it being a short time, I'm devastated. I feel disgusted, used, and disappointed. I believe in marriage and I take it seriously. And I realize there is someone else in this situation who stands to get their heart broken. I don't know anything about this other woman, and I'm torn between walking away and saying nothing, and walking away but trying to find her details to tell her what he's been up to. If it were me, I'm not sure I would want to know this information, but then again, maybe I would. I can't tell if I'm blinded by shock and sadness right now. How would you handle this? I want to be mature about this, but I hate that people like this are out there, hurting others for what feels like no reason other than their own selfishness. What should I do? Okay, if I'm dating someone and I find out they're married all of a sudden, you better believe I'm telling that other person. I don't care what's going on. This is honestly so crazy to me. Because here's the thing, you're not getting married overnight. I don't care who you are. You're not all of a sudden gonna get married to someone and be like, okay, happily ever after. And yes, I know there's extenuating circumstances where people actually do that, but I'm talking like overall, general people who are like, okay, I've known this person for several years and now I'm gonna get married. Because that's clearly what's been going on behind the scenes. The original poster was just some kind of like side piece for this guy, and she had no idea that he was engaged and getting married soon. Like seriously, what a scumbag. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely tell that other lady. I would 100% tell that lady that he was cheating, because what he did is incredibly sketchy, and that is something that she has the right to know. An entitled jerk keeps stealing my footballs anytime we go to practice. So I decided to get some petty revenge by secretly deflating them behind his back. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I am European, so the footballs that I'm referring to are not the same that you would find in America. I'm working as a volunteer football coach for some kids in a small club. I really enjoy being a coach, and I help them improve their football skills. I always arrive a bit early at the club to prepare drills and the materials for the training session, and there is another coach at the club who is a real jerk. He seriously thinks he's the next big thing, which in my opinion, he definitely is not. He doesn't prepare drills by drawing or writing them down. He always makes negative comments about mine or other coaches' drills. He doesn't respect pitch schedules and always leaves goals on the pitch, so we have to spend time removing them, and he also loses balls and other materials all the time. I have tried to talk with him about this, but he says he has more coaching experience and that he has been at the club longer than I have, so I just have to get used to his ways. The final straw of his behavior was when after a training session, my team couldn't find some of our footballs. We then spent up to half an hour trying to find them, and for reference, every ball is marked with team names to recognize the balls. But eventually it got late, and we had to go back down because the kids' parents were waiting for them. Now I was frustrated because I always make sure that when a ball is kicked out of the pitch, the kids are ordered to go get the ball back immediately. Balls are expensive, and if we lose them, we have to wait some time before we are getting new ones. I got back to the ball lockers and was putting them back inside my team lockers, and right there I saw 3 of my balls in my coach colleague's ball locker, and all of my team balls had been marked over with his team name by him. Well, instead of trying to talk to him about it and get my balls back, where he definitely will deny him doing such a thing, I instead brought in a ball pressure gauge. And so for the last 2 months, I've deflated all of his balls before training session to the point where he has to inflate all of them to make them useful. And it's funny how he's started to complain about the quality of the balls and that he deserves new balls now. And honestly, this guy's a massive jerk, and this is exactly what he gets for stealing my footballs. I love the fact that you did this because that guy does sound like a jerk. He's literally trying to excuse his crappy behavior by being like, oh, I've got more experience. You're just gonna have to deal with it. And that's just super weird. Like, seriously, just be reasonable. So good for you for getting back at him in the way that you did, because if he's gonna steal those footballs, then congratulations, they're always going to be deflated. The local coffee shop that I work for was incredibly toxic, as they tried to posture themselves as a fine dining experience. But after quitting and meeting some of the other coworkers that worked there, I realized that this was not an isolated incident, and I'm honestly so glad I don't deal with them any longer. Here's what happened. Okay, so this is my very first time doing something like this. I worked at White Noise Coffee, a locally owned coffee shop in New York City. When I was hired, my job description was just barista, but on the first day, training was all rushed. They expected me to learn all the point of sale and make drinks on the same day, and then on my second day, do kitchen work. And at that time, they recently opened a kitchen area and expected for all baristas to cook restaurant-style quality. They taught me once and made me do 5 orders right away on rush hour, while one of the owners, who we will call Hans, yelled by your ear and was throwing tantrums, while Hans's wife, who we will call Vanessa, and also an owner of the restaurant, just watches us get mistreated while having a smirk on her face. Now, because I was not able to cook, Hans threw all the utensils and pan to the sink and told me to wash everything before I leave for my shift, and that if I did not clean it properly, it would come out of my paycheck. Well, naturally, I quit over the phone with Vanessa, and I commented on how the workplace is very toxic, but she just decided to laugh and said, I thought you were better. Hans's attitude is like this because he was an accountant, which made no sense at all. Later on in my coffee career, I met ex-workers from White Noise who also everyone commented on how terrible that place was, which brings me to the topic of one particular worker who stayed long enough to know the owners better and then asked them why their attitudes were so awful. They said basically they want White Noise to serve like a fine dining experience, and the reason they're so tough on the employees is to filter the strong ones out from the weak ones. And funny enough, all the good baristas that were in White Noise are the people that I met. One way I would describe White Noise on how terrible it was is that basically it was the TV show The Bear, but honestly it was worse, because Hans would physically pull and push you if you made even a small mistake. So yeah, I'm glad I don't work there anymore because that place sounds incredibly toxic. Okay, in my opinion, you can still have high standards for what you want served at your restaurant, but also choose not to be a complete jerk in the process. Screaming in someone's ear over food and all this other crap, like that honestly doesn't do anything except stress people out. No one should have to deal with that. I don't know about you, but if someone started doing that to me, you better believe that's not gonna go well for that person. That doesn't teach discipline or like teach them how to be a better chef or whatever. That only teaches them that, oh yeah, this person is literally the devil and I can't wait to get away from them. Oh, and by the way, it's not weak to quit a job that's being toxic towards you. You don't owe those people anything. Like, those people are losers and there's no way that anyone should ever have to deal with that. So good for you for getting out of there in the way that you did, because those people sound like absolute nightmares to work for. Am I the jerk for not wanting my boyfriend's mom to move in with us, as she is literally taking the one space that I had left that I could claim as my own in this house? Because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I've always been close to my grandma, and when she got sick, I dropped everything at the age of 20 to take care of her on my own, hours away from any other family. We had a wonderful relationship, and unfortunately she passed away in March of 2024, and those 5 years that she was sick were very hard for me. On a separate note, in January of 2024, I began long-distance dating someone. We originally met in high school, and I was so happy to be reconnecting with him. I was head over heels, and my mom and grandma were excited for him. Before she passed away, my grandma told me to move out of state and be happy with him, because it's my time to live now, and so I did it. She died and I moved in with him in October. Now, I realize this sounds really stupid, and I really should have known better, like seriously, because life is so hard right now, and I'm adjusting to a lot at once. I have nothing and nobody here. I'm in my first serious relationship, and I share a space with him and my 5-year-old stepdaughter. Everything here is so different from home, and worst of all, I still mourn my grandma like she died yesterday. It changed me, and not in a pleasant way. I'm moody and apathetic, and while I do my very best every day, I'm still not the bright, bubbly woman I used to be. I had hoped that my boyfriend would help me through this, but I feel lonelier than ever. We never really talk much about my grief. When I freak out, I try explaining to him that I am in a world of pain, and I'm sorry because it causes me to be a big handful, but he is still always upset with me because I sometimes don't want to play with his daughter when I'm sad or tired. He's upset because I'm not optimistic about trying new things, and there's always a reason we're upset at each other. And now his mom is staying with us for personal reasons, which hadn't really been a part of the plan, but he invited her without consulting me first. I got really upset because I live here too. too. And this affects me as well, and quite frankly, I was raised believing couples need to live alone, definitely with no moms under the roof. But I understand her situation, so I asked him to have a conversation with her about what her plan was, how long she was planning on staying, what does staying here look like, but he still hasn't talked to her. Ultimately, I'm upset because in this house there are 4 rooms. He and I share one room, his daughter has her own, which she rarely uses by the way, as she's only here on weekends, and even then, she sleeps and hangs out with us. He has his office and the last is completely empty. Before I even moved in, I asked if I could use it because I need my personal space sometimes. He said absolutely, I definitely need my own space and that it will be good for me to have a room for myself. I planned on creating my own little safe space for when I was feeling especially sad or just having a tough time with grief or overstimulation or anything. I had been planning what bookshelves to buy, sending him photos, telling him my plans of filling it with my grandma's plants, and just creating a cozy atmosphere. But then he gave it to his mom, again without consulting me. But now he's angry because I asked if his mom can't just stay in his daughter's room. You know, since the room is unused and his daughter likes sleeping with his mom anyways. And especially because this was supposed to be temporary. How is it that everybody has their own space but me? I can't even cry in peace because I don't have anywhere to go without someone walking in. And it's killing me that he can't understand the enormous adjustments and the immense grief that I'm experiencing. I don't think I'm asking for too much, but honestly, I need to know. Am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, this just doesn't sound like this is a good fit. I know for myself, I need my own space. I can't really function without having somewhere I can go to do my own thing. And the fact that he took away that one space you had without talking to you first, and also moved his mom in without talking to you at all about it, like that is a big red flag in my opinion, and I would not put up with that for a second. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be moving out. I would not live there. There's just no way that's gonna work. I would find an apartment and get my own space, because this clearly is not working in my opinion. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely hate having to deal with this. My entitled neighbor seems to think that just because I have a car that drives by his work, I am now somehow his personal Uber who is gonna drive him to and from work. And now I'm honestly super frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things off, a few weeks ago, I finally bought a new car. It's nothing too flashy, but it is a big deal for me because I've been saving up for a while and I also got really lucky. So needless to say, I was feeling very good about it. One morning I was driving to work and I saw my neighbor walking down the street. We are friendly but not super close, and I figured I would be nice, so I pulled over and I asked if he needed a lift. He happily accepted, and during the ride, we realized that we worked fairly close to each other. Now, no big deal, right? Well, apparently that one ride turned into an unspoken agreement. The next day, I saw him standing there at the same spot, clearly waiting for me. I thought to myself, alright, whatever, I'll give him another ride. But now it's been every single day ever since then. Rain or shine, he is there. No text message, no asking. He's just standing there waiting. At first, I didn't mind too much, but now it's getting on my nerves. Some mornings I just want to listen to music, zone out, or even just stop for coffee without worrying about someone else's schedule. I even tried leaving earlier once, thinking that he'd get the hint, but no. The next day he mentioned how he must have missed me. Now, I don't want to be a jerk, but I never agreed to be his personal chauffeur. I was just trying to be nice one time, and now I feel awkward bringing it up because I don't want to cause any weird tension with a neighbor. So seriously, would I be the bad guy if I just started running late or having meetings in the morning? Or should I just straight up tell him that I don't want to give him rides every day? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, there's no reason you should ever have to give this guy a ride. There's nothing wrong with being direct and saying, listen, I can't give you a ride. This isn't working for me. You need to find your own way to work moving forward. And it doesn't matter if his work is like on the way to your work. That is still an unnecessary stop that you did not sign up for. I mean, if he really wants to get to work, then guess what? He can take the bus. Like, that's what public transportation is for. You're not this guy's personal driver and you have no obligation to him. And it doesn't matter that he's your neighbor. This is so weirdly entitled, it honestly is like super annoying. So no, you would not be the jerk for using your words and saying, no, I can't give you a ride anymore. Because the very fact that this guy's expecting it without setting up some kind of arrangement, like him paying you for gas or something like that, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. My wife cheated on me the night before, but confessed to me immediately the next day. And now I'm left feeling so heartbroken that I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, as the title states, my wife cheated on me and it happened 10 days ago. She went out with her friends, met a guy, drank more than usual, started flirting, got tempted, resisted for some time, and then he seduced her. And they then had some unprotected quality time, if you know what I mean. I went to bed early because I had work the next day, so I didn't see her until the next morning. Now, she was home but didn't sleep in our bed and slept in the living room, and I guess she just didn't want to wake me up. Anyways, I took my stuff and I went to work. When I came back home from from work, we had lunch, but I could tell something wasn't right. Long story short, she told me that she had something to say to me and that it was heavy and difficult. She then informed me that she slept with a guy the night before. She told me all the details. There were no tears, no begging, no nothing. She had probably cried the entire day while I was at work, but while she was telling me what she did, there wasn't any crying. Now, of course, I was shocked. My sweetheart, my friend, my other half had betrayed me and stabbed me in the back. I had no words, absolutely nothing I could say. I just looked at her and she looked at me, and there was nothing, only silence. We didn't speak that day and we just did the chores like robots. And over the next few days, we had a few conversations. I asked her if that was all and she said yes. I asked her how I could believe anything she said and she replied that I couldn't. I asked her how I could trust her with anything and she said that I could not. She said that there was no going back, that there was nothing we could do to go back, and she just asked me if there was anything I would like to try at all. I then asked her if she realized that the path of us reconciling might never work, that it could be a waste of time, money, and emotions, and only prolong the inevitable. She said yes, and then I asked her if she understood that I might never forgive her, that forgiveness and grace are gifts given freely and not something you deserve or get for being a good person, and to that she also said yes. I asked her why it happened, and she told me it was thrilling, exciting, and something new, even though she was drunk and she made her decision. I told her that now I know she's capable of such a thing. What is stopping her from doing it again? She said that she didn't think she was capable of doing something so horrible and that she would do everything to ensure it doesn't happen again. But I told her I can't trust her ever again. I love her, but I don't respect her anymore, and I told her so. She then apologized, but I told her that apologies and words are meaningless and worthless. She said she would accept whatever decision I make, but she promised on everything that she has that she would atone for her mistake, that she would never do anything like that again, and that she would be grateful to me for the rest of her life. She also said that if I chose to divorce her, she wouldn't make it difficult and that she would carry that burden forever. I then took a few days off and I left for my grandparents' house on the farm just to think things over, and at this point I'm unsure. I love her, she is the only woman that exists for me, but at the same time, I understand that I would lose my pride and self-respect if I take her back. She was honest and took responsibility, made no excuses, and is ready to accept whatever decision I make. She is a cheater, but at least she has some kind of decency. But at this point, I'm honestly so hurt and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I want to say I'm so sorry this happened because from the sounds of it, you do not deserve this. Your wife cheated in a way that you clearly did not expect was ever going to happen. And that seriously sucks. I'm so sorry that happened because you just don't deserve this kind of treatment. And sure, she apologized and said, I'm so sorry this happened, and she admitted to it right away, but that doesn't excuse the fact that she's married and she still chose to do that. And just like the original poster, I would be devastated if I found that out. It would be very hard for me to come back and be like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. Let's go to therapy and figure this out. It's like, no, dude, this is crazy to me. You literally betrayed me on something I thought you would be perfect at. I thought you would be perfect at not cheating on me, but clearly you can't, and now here we are. So I can't really say on whether or not you should stay with her because that's obviously your decision, but I know if I was in your shoes, I would really be thinking this over because what she did to you is absolutely unexcusable, and this is something that you did not deserve in the slightest. My toxic entitled friend is constantly antagonistic towards my family and my children, as she is always asking for money and basically implying that my family is distracting me from giving her exactly what she wants. And so, after a really toxic remark she made about my future kid, I decided to get some revenge by literally cutting her out of my life in a way that she will never find me ever again. Here's what happened. So I ended a very long-term friendship with someone I called my best friend because it became glaringly obvious that she only had time for me when she needed money or help. I ended it abruptly and without explanation after she said one of the most callous things I've ever heard from someone who claimed to care about me. For a bit of context, about 3 years ago, I became a mother, and that's around the time when she stopped showing up for me, constantly making excuses and telling me she had other plans. I was always the person who could show up at her house even when I lived an hour away, but once I moved within a 3-mile radius of her, she never had time for me. I'm a stay-at-home mom, and she makes more than my husband does, and her bills are about 50% less than ours. I have urged her to work on budgeting and making a plan for savings, but she says I'm making her feel bad about her spending and just shuts me out. She knows that my husband and I have worked really hard to get our credit scores over 700. We put money into savings, and we've been really responsible with our finances. So when I would tell her that I can't help her out, she goes heavy on the guilt tripping, insinuating that I should be helping her because she knows we have money saved, and simply won't talk about anything other than how her financial problems are going to cause her to completely break down. And then at that point, she becomes hysterical. In the last year alone, I've bailed her out of car repossession, having her electricity turned off for non-payments, gas money, money for her child's medications, etc. Yet she always has money to smoke, drink alcohol, ordering food, buying stuff to decorate her house, etc. And always has excuses for why she just can't pay me back on time. And she even claims that she just forgot that the bills were due. She recently formed a new group of friends that don't have any children or any responsibilities, who can party with her, enable her bad habits, bring liquor to her house, buy her things, and get drunk every single weekend. And yet I was placed on the back burner because me having a family, a child, and responsibilities no longer fits into her lifestyle. Her husband is actively addicted to substances, and she enables him to stay active in addiction, would constantly call me, literally crying and screaming into my ear about how badly he treats her, how strung out he is, and how badly they're fighting. But then, in the same conversation, she reverts back to making excuses for him whenever solutions are presented. But any mention of my husband, who works hard to take care of his family and we're both in therapy, and she has nothing but unkind things to say about him, referencing back to many years prior when we were struggling in the past. She was unhappy when my husband and I got married, where she said that she didn't support it and that she didn't want to know about it. But the thing is, we are very happy and we have been for quite a while. It's almost as if she resents my husband and my family for making me less accessible to her instead of being happy for me. Well, fast forward to present day, and my husband and I are expecting our second child, which was all part of the plan, and she is also not happy about that. She even went as far as encouraging me to make sure the birth doesn't happen, if you know what I mean, and said that I was making a mistake. Now, for reference, I'm struggling in this pregnancy with something that is causing extreme morning sickness all day, every day, and I'm throwing up 5 to 10 times a day, and I'm barely able to hold down water. And sure, there are medications that help, but the side effects are also just super rough. It is temporary and I know it will pass, but still it's really hard nonetheless. Well, my breaking point was reaching out to her for support recently because of the mental toll that it's all taking on me. Because she said to me, "You did this to yourself and you need to figure out how to deal with it on your own." And this was said a few days after I said no when she needed $250 for an ongoing health issue her dog has had for months now. You know, the same one that she's just completely let go. Well, after she said that, full stop, I blocked her number, all of her socials, and also deleted several of my socials because she had multiple friends watching my posts and reporting back to her. She even created profiles to try and get access to me, but I did not provide any explanation or any reason for cutting her off. I know from years and years of dealing with her that she will try to turn it back around on me, play the perpetual victim, twist it to make it my fault, and manufacture a list of things that she thinks I've done wrong, and I honestly just don't have the time or energy to deal with it. Wow, good for you for cutting this lady off because she is insane. She's the classic person who literally only takes away from friendships and doesn't give anything. She's always looking for a handout, but she's never able to give a handout herself. And that's honestly so obnoxious. And I really think the worst part about this is that you are completely right. She's pissed off because you're focusing on other people instead of her, as if your family and your children are somehow a distraction from what she wants. And it's like, my God, she was never your friend to begin with. Everything with her was just transactional because she literally only wanted money out of you and nothing else. So seriously, good for you for cutting her off because that lady sounds like an absolute nightmare to deal with. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled truck driver decided to be a jerk by flashing his lights and honking his horn anytime we tried to stop him on the highway. So me and my girlfriend decided to get some petty revenge by literally giving him a taste of his own medicine. Here's what happened. So this happened last summer when my girlfriend and I were driving back from her sister's house. It was a long drive, and since we left late at night, we ended up on the toll roads around 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, at first, we noticed flashes of light in the distance and assumed it was heat lightning since, you know, it was summer, so we just didn't think much of it. A little while later, we got behind a semi-truck on a 2-lane road. When we switched lanes to pass him, everything seemed fine until he moved behind us and started flashing his brights at us non-stop. Well, that's when we realized that the heat lightning we had been seeing was actually this guy flashing his brights at every car in front of him. On top of that, he started honking at us. Stunned, we switched lanes to let him pass, and as we did, he flicked us off. At that point, my girlfriend decided to stay behind him because she didn't want to drive next to him. Well, as we continued driving, he did the same thing to another car. After a few minutes, I then joked that we should give him a taste of his own medicine. My girlfriend said yeah, and she started flashing her lights at him, honking her horn, and then sped past him, and I even flicked him off. By the time he realized what was happening, we were already far ahead. He tried to catch up, but his truck just didn't have the speed, and we simply couldn't stop laughing. We never figured out why he was doing it, but blinding people at night like that was just dumb and dangerous. dangerous. He wasn't trapped in traffic or anything. He was just being a massive jerk. So in the end, we got our petty revenge and we had a good laugh all the way home. Yeah, I will never understand why some truck drivers act like that, where they will be up on your tail and flashing their lights and honking their horn as if they somehow own the road. It's like, dude, I'm going the speed limit and I'm literally out of your way. I'm trying to pass around you because you're the one going too slow. So for you to pretend to be super aggressive for some dumb reason, all because I'm trying to get around you, like that is honestly so obnoxious. So honestly, I don't blame you for getting revenge on this guy, because the way this guy treated you, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. Today, I messed up by sending a badly timed gift to the work group chat that caused all of my coworkers and manager to start desperately messaging me that I need to delete it right away. Here's what happened. So this took place back in 2020 during the lockdowns, and I'm 30 years old at the time. My workplace shifted to remote working, so everyone was now working from home, and Microsoft Teams was the new tool that we were using to keep in contact. My manager suggested that in the mornings, everyone sends a GIF or a meme to the group chat when they start work. That way, everybody knows we're online. The group chat consisted of 15 people, so mornings were a little annoying as the group chat was flooded with images and messages. As a fan of The Simpsons, I would usually just send some random Simpsons GIF, like Homer emerging from the bushes or Ralph rolling down a hill. So one morning, I had to start a little earlier to catch up on some work, and I opened up Teams and I did my usual Simpsons-related search, and then I picked the GIF of evil Homer dressed as the devil, shaking maracas and dancing on the grave of good Homer. And honestly, I thought I was the first person to message in the group that morning, but I was completely wrong. After I sent the message, I went to the bathroom, and while on the toilet, I could hear my Teams notifications go off, and even heard somebody try to call me twice. But I figured it could wait until I got back to my desk. So I get to see what's going on a couple of minutes later. The group chat was still open with my GIF of evil Homer dancing on a grave, but there was another message I hadn't seen earlier. The message had the same timestamp as mine, but it appeared in the chat before my GIF. They must have sent it moments before I did, making it look like I'd sent my GIF of the grave dancing Homer as a response. Well, the message was one of the team members saying that her dad died over the weekend, and she wouldn't be working for the next few days to spend time with the family and plan the funeral. When I realized what it looked like, my heart sank. I rushed to delete the message and just prayed that she hadn't seen it. The other notifications was one colleague sending me a screenshot of the chat and asking me what I was thinking, and the others were 2 missed calls from my manager and an all caps message telling me to delete the GIF immediately. After deleting it, I called my manager to let her know what had happened, and thankfully she assumed it was a mistake and that I would never do something so insensitive. I asked if she thought I should say anything to the colleague, since I wasn't sure if she had actually seen it, but my manager said that she was offline now anyways, so all I could do was wait until she's back if I was going to say anything. When she returned to work, I did explain what happened and I gave her an apology. I didn't give the full description exactly of what GIF I sent, just that it wasn't appropriate for the time. Luckily, she said she had not seen the message, so thankfully I didn't hurt her, but I did scare the living daylights out of about 5 coworkers who had seen the message and the GIF before I was able to delete it. And honestly, with all things considered, I think I got incredibly lucky. Oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. First off, you're so lucky your coworker didn't see that, because yeah, that could have been really bad. But also, at least you have people who care and they're like, wait a second, you need to delete that. Because I've worked in places where my coworkers could care less what I'm doing, and so you very easily could have had somebody in that group be like, oh, that's funny, let me report you and get you in trouble. So yeah, this was definitely a mess up, but honestly, it clearly was not on purpose. But it's just so unfortunate and kind of funny that that's the message you sent, especially after something so devastating that your coworker just described. Am I the jerk for not having my roommate's back on enforcing her boundaries about our roommate? Because right now she's incredibly mad at me and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live with 3 roommates. We'll call them Leah, May, and Darcy. Leah and I have lived together for 3 years now, May for 1 year, and Darcy for only a few months. Well, the issues started with Darcy getting a new boyfriend who started coming over quite frequently. I have no issue with this, and neither does May, because the boyfriend is very nice. But apparently, it's Leah that has the issue with this. Now, Leah's room is right next door to Darcy. Her complaints so far have been the following. For starters, she's been woken up to the sounds of bed squeaking a couple of times. Secondly, Darcy hasn't told us when he's coming over a couple of times. So he's walked in while Leah is in pajamas or doing Pilates. He also doesn't really clean up after himself at the bathroom, and also he left the window blind open when it's always closed. But mostly overall, it's how often he's over at the house. It's been a month of this boyfriend being around, and Leah has come ranting to me on multiple occasions. She has sat down with Darcy to discuss this, and Darcy was embarrassed by the noise thing, and I believe it hasn't happened ever since then. However, Leah also told Darcy that she could only have her boyfriend over once a week, as she said that she made it clear when Darcy moved in that this was a quiet house where boys can't come and go. Not even overnight once a week, but anything longer than 15 minutes or just getting picked up. Ever since that talk, Darcy still has him over, even though it is a little bit less, going from maybe 4 times a week to 2 times a week. But still, it's way more often than Leah would want. Now, I've kind of just gone along with whatever Leah has said because it's easier and we are good friends, but I don't really care that much. And also, I live on a different floor from them in our house. Frankly, I have no issue with any of that, except for the obvious point of the bed squeaking, which I'm happy has been addressed. I also have sympathy because the boyfriend lives in dorms on an army base, so they have no option but to come to our place if they want to hang out without spending any money. Well, here's where I may be the jerk. Darcy texted our group chat asking if she could have her boyfriend over tonight. Leah was talking to me when we got the message, and I told her that it's up to her, but I'm not going to say no. She then started ranting about the situation again, and at this point I kind of snapped, and I said to her, your boundaries might not be reasonable, and I explained that a lot of people wouldn't care about him being over or some of the issues that she's had with him. Well, she was very clearly not impressed with what I said, and the conversation devolved from there into me telling her to do what she wanted to, but it's also up to her now. I'm not getting involved, with her replying and saying, well, that's fine. You haven't had my back since the beginning of this, so what difference does it make? So seriously, am I the jerk for what I said to her? Like, I can see where some frustration comes from, but I don't think we have any right to limit what someone is doing in the place they rent. Leah does have bad anxiety, so this might be a contributing factor. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I really can see both sides here because this does sound incredibly messy. For starters, Leah is literally right next to them. She has a front row seat at how noisy and obnoxious Darcy probably is being. And I don't know about you, but if you've had like roommates or even like lived in an apartment complex, noise is just gonna be a part of the equation. Like literally, this is just something that happens and you kind of just have to live with it. But when it comes to Leah, clearly this is something way worse than what would normally be allowed in an apartment. And she's kind of latched onto the idea of like, oh no, this is Darcy's boyfriend and he's gotta go. So on that end, I can understand where she's coming from, but also I think Darcy absolutely has a right to bring her boyfriend over. For me, unless it's in writing in some kind of like lease of some kind that says no, we can't have anybody over here ever, then sorry about that, but my significant other is absolutely coming over. Like, you can't stop me, I didn't sign up for that and I don't care. And it's also really weird to me that Leah's trying to drag you into this and be like, you need to help support me on this. It's like, nope, I don't think so. I'm not involved. I live upstairs and I don't have anything to do with this. Do whatever you want. I've had friends like that where it's like their way or the highway, and I can completely understand why you're like, okay, I'm not getting involved in this. So that's just my take on it. I kind of see both sides of this and I can see why you would be annoyed, but I can also absolutely understand why Leah is like, okay, this has got to stop. But either way, hopefully this gets worked out because this sounds like an annoying situation. Today, I found out that my girlfriend of almost 5 years cheated on me in a way that honestly has broken my trust. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So we've been together for 4 years, almost 5 in total. And today, the guy she went out with told me everything that happened between them. Basically, they met at the gym and started texting each other on Instagram. One day, they decided to go out together, obviously without telling me. And from there were other dates between the two of them and other group dates with his friends. And for reference, she only told me that she had met this group of nice guys and that she had gone out with them a couple of times. During one of those dates that she went with just the two of them, she invited the guy to her grandmother's house since the bars were closed and it was cold outside. When they arrived, he lay down on the couch to sleep and she leaned against his chest, taking his arms and holding him close to her to be hugged. After that night, he told me that on other occasions, she also tried to kiss him. For example, while they were walking, she stopped, put her hands on his shoulders and stared at him. As soon as I found out everything, I confronted her, and as I told her what had been said to me, she continued to deny it, saying that for her, he was just a friend, and that she loved him because he was going through a difficult family situation. I then had to tell her everything that he had told me to get her to admit something, even if she continued to contradict herself. Looking at the chat between her and him, I saw that it was almost always her who suggested they go out, and that they would go out at night, which would literally be on nights when I sent her a message saying goodnight, and she would just brush me off and ignore it. We finally got to the point where she burst into tears, apologizing and saying that she doesn't feel anything for that guy, and that he was always just a friend to her. Now, to give some info about me, I'm a very quiet guy and I'm introverted. I prefer to stay home on Saturday nights, or at most, always go out with the same group of friends. But she's the opposite. She likes going out, she's extroverted, and she wants to go out every single Saturday. So honestly, I don't know if I should forgive her. It bothers me to end a relationship like this after 5 years together, but I have no idea how to forget or even ignore what happened, especially because she hid it from me. What should I do? Okay, I think it's important to know that I don't think she's actually sorry. She's only sorry that she got caught and not that she was cheating. If she had any ounce of like remorse remorse about what she was doing, she would have disconnected from this guy and been like, wait a second, what am I doing? This is so wrong. But instead, she was sneaking behind your back and going out with this guy and also meeting his friends and doing all this other sketchy stuff. And that, in my opinion, is not the mark of a good girlfriend. If anything, that's the mark of someone who absolutely does not have your best interest in mind. And she clearly just doesn't care about you in that way. So truly, do of this what you will, but I know for me, there's no way I would ever take someone like that back, because that's a level of betrayal that I just honestly don't think I would ever be able to forgive. Am I the jerk for snapping at my friend after she humiliated me in front of others? Because things seriously got very heated, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been close friends with this girl for the past 2 years. We've had our fair share of issues, but this time things escalated to the extreme. Recently, we attended an event with some mutual friends. While walking around, she jokingly called me pig crap in front of everybody. And while I did take this in stride, it still did sting a little. Later, when everyone was taking pictures, I asked if we could take one together, but she insisted on a group picture instead. Our friends encouraged us to take one first, saying that we do the group photo afterwards. But suddenly, she withdrew and lashed out. She then said to me, "Then go ahead, take the picture alone." And it honestly felt humiliating. Now, this wasn't the first time. Something similar happened before when we had an argument. She had refused to take a group picture just because I was in it. She then made a scene and then walked away. Confused and upset, I asked her what in the world that was about, but she ignored me. I persisted and raised my voice a bit, and I demanded an answer, at which point she ran away. And you know what? I left the event too. Later on, she called me, yelling about how I insulted her in public. She said she didn't take the picture because she wasn't comfortable with me. And it's like, excuse me, what are you talking about? The argument got heated and she shouted at me and I yelled back at her. And then out of nowhere, she threw in and said, "Is this how you talk to your mother and sister?" At that point, I lost it. I said, "F you," and then I hung up. I also texted her saying that she is an awful person and I was done walking on eggshells around her. I pointed out how she treats strangers with sweetness, but is awful to people who actually care about her. And then I blocked her completely. She then called me from another number, absolutely furious. "How dare you cuss at me? How dare you call me awful?" But I retaliated, saying that she was the one who dragged my mother into the argument. Well, her response was to say, "Should I call your mother and tell her that she's awful and say the F word at her?" She then accused me of not knowing how to respect women. She then threatened to file a police complaint against me for cussing at her. And then she ended the call by saying, "I hope you go straight to Hades." But I just said, "Yeah, I'll see you there," and then I hung up. After cooling down, I felt bad for how ugly things got. I sent her a message saying I didn't appreciate her bringing my mother into it, but I was sorry for cussing at her and how the fight escalated. Well, she just read it and then she blocked me. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for the way I responded? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is such a weird situation because my God, no, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think you probably could have had that conversation in a much more mature manner, but seriously, your friend here is not a good friend at all. She literally puts you down in public, she calls you names and treats you like garbage in front of everybody else, and she goes as far as trying to isolate you from the group just to humiliate you. So yeah, this whole situation really sucks, but I think you really need to find better friends, because this lady definitely does not sound like one. An entitled toxic coworker pranks my trainees so badly that one of them rushes to my office so upset that they were in tears. So I decided to get some revenge by humiliating them in front of our boss in such a way that honestly makes them look like a complete idiot. And I've honestly never felt better in my life about getting back at somebody in this way. Here's what happened. Many years ago, I had a job where I worked with a company's apprentices and helped guide them in their job duties and training. This is a male-dominated field, and the workshops can be pretty tough on the trainees, especially the females. At the time, I had 2 apprentices, 1 girl and 1 boy, and they were absolutely amazing workers in every way possible. But in the shop, we had several men that loved making the trainees' lives difficult. All the usual pranks like sending them to the store to get a T1000 bolt stretcher or 10 liters of compressed water. None of this was really cruel, but when they already feel like they don't fit in or even know how things work, these pranks can really make them feel low. One older guy in the workshop, let's call him Bob, had decided to pull his usual prank on the trainees. After they unlocked the trainee toolbox, he replaced their open lock with a duplicate lock. At the end of the day, they locked their toolbox up and went home, not knowing that it wouldn't be open the next day. What Bob didn't know was that the trainees were scheduled to do some really important jobs for a very nasty middle manager at 7 the next morning. Additionally, Bob was sent to a different location before work started, leaving both trainees unable to get their tools. Well, I finished a meeting at 9 o'clock, and I was met in my office by a crying 18-year-old girl. When they arrived at the shop in the morning, the manager assigned them some tasks and kept bothering them about their progress. Well, apparently, they were too embarrassed to say that they couldn't remember the code to the toolbox lock, and that Bob had locked up all the items they could use to cut the lock off. The manager stressed them out so bad that they just basically shut down. So I went to the shop and I opened Bob's toolbox and I let them use his tools, which if you don't know is a huge deal in a workshop. You never use someone's tools without permission. Bob returned a couple of hours later and was actually upset that they were in his toolbox, but also was incredibly pleased that they had issues with that manager. Now I could have left it there, but honestly I'm very spiteful and petty, so this is where I decided to get some revenge. Well, a month or so later, one of the trainees found a crate that had hand tools that had been missing for years, and we're talking thousands of dollars worth of tools. Saltwater had gotten inside and the tools were very rusty. He was going to show them how to clean up those tools and make them work like brand new again. The only problem was that Bob wasn't a very good industrial mechanic, and he definitely wasn't good at cleaning tools. So he took a 5-gallon bucket of WD-40, which by the way cost about $200, and just dumped a bunch of rusty tools in it. And sure, WD-40 is many things, but rust remover is not one of them. The trainees then excitedly showed me the tools they found and the bucket where Bob was helping to fix the tools. Bob strolled over and pulled a tool from the bucket and gave it a few attempts to see if it was free and dumped it back in. I told him it wouldn't remove the rust, but he replied by saying, "Just wait and see, I've done this many times before." Well, after a few days of this, I had an epiphany. I then told the trainees to stick around after work on Friday if they wanted to get some revenge on Bob. So we removed the tools from the WD-40, we dried them off, and we bead blasted the rust right off of them. Then we disassembled the ones with moving parts and greased them until they worked like new. Then we carefully dumped rusty metal dust onto all of the tools and slowly lowered them back into the WD-40. Well, fast forward to Monday morning during the weekly walkthrough, and I made sure to lead the boss towards the giant bucket of tools. He reacted exactly as I thought he would after seeing $200 of wasted WD-40. He also told Bob it's not rust remover. Bob grabbed a tool from the bucket, held it up, and miraculously it wiped clean. I mean, this looked like new. And best of all, it functioned like new. He proudly showed the boss that he was right all along, bragging about his expertise with tools. About this time, the trainees were smiling and chuckling. Bob asked what was so funny, the WD-40 worked. And that's when I prompted one of the trainees to tell Bob a little story about what they did after work on Friday, how they blasted and cleaned the tools because WD-40 isn't a rust remover. The boss then started laughing hysterically, basically saying, well duh, even the trainees know WD-40 won't remove rust. When the big boss said that, Bob literally turned bright red. He was stuttering and stammering, trying hard to play it off like he didn't care. But all day long, I kept retelling the story, especially if Bob was near. For weeks, he was being asked if he had some extra WD-40 by random people in the workshops. So the moral of this story is don't mess with my apprentices on my watch, especially if you try to hit them with some kind of malicious prank. Oh man, this really is nice, but honestly, I think you could have gone way further with Bob. Don't get me wrong, I love the fact that you humiliated him in front of your boss, and literally in front of the entire company, but this guy almost cost these people their job. Like the fact that they didn't know their code to get into that stupid cabinet, like that really could have been so much worse than just public humiliation. That could have cost them their career, and no less from a manager who's like so stuck up it's not even funny. And for me personally, I think pranks and stuff like that really should be reserved to coworkers that you actually like, because at least there's some kind of like camaraderie there. And you know at the end of the day, they're not going to be like super offended or hurt or something like that. But regardless, in my opinion, I think you did a great job in making Bob look like a complete idiot, because what he did, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not letting my husband attend his sister's wedding? All because I was pregnant and I could give birth while he was gone. Because right now there's a lot of drama in the family and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and myself are expecting our first child this May in 2025. We found out very early in September, and we did not keep this a secret from anyone. And in fact, we shared the news in person with his family and with my family on the day that we found out. During this period, his sister was getting to know someone and got engaged in October of 2024. It's sort of an arranged marriage, as she was set up and decided to get engaged only after 3 months of speaking to the guy. Her parents, who are my in-laws, were happy that she liked him and wanted to quickly move forward. And apparently she's been wanting to get married for the past 5 years. After the engagement party in October, there was a brief discussion of when the wedding would take place. His sister had mentioned that she wanted to be married by no later than April 2025. After our first initial visit in September, my husband had mentioned to his parents that I would not be able to travel after 34 weeks per my doctor, but his mother decided to ignore this information and not address it. His sister and mother decided to plan on having the wedding in April 2025, even though they had not booked anything. His sister's fiance also also lives in Texas, a 3.5-hour flight away. I briefly mentioned that I would not be able to attend in April as it would be too close to my due date, but wish them all the best in their planning. Well, February of this year rolls around, and they decided to have the wedding this upcoming April in Texas. I tell my husband that because I will be almost 37 weeks pregnant, that we would definitely not be able to go. Well, a month prior, during a huge fight that we had, his mom had told him it's okay if I don't go, but that he would have to attend. And at the time, I was not opposed to it as I thought it would be fine. But 2 weeks ago, and we met with my doctor, and I decided to ask her for advice while he was there also in the room. I then asked her for confirmation that it's not a problem if he were to travel during my 37th week. She then looks at both of us and says absolutely not. When she said that, we both shared her in shock. She continues by saying, "This would be like rolling a dice. I would not recommend it. If something were to happen, I would not be able to slow anything down." Well, he unenthusiastically agrees and says it's messed up that they picked a date knowing that we most likely will not be able to attend. It's now almost April, and he just told his mother that we will both for sure not be attending. Well, my husband and in-laws then have a huge fight, and he explains the situation. And then suddenly, his dad says that he won't be attending the wedding either if my husband is not there. But I still don't budge after he tells me this, and I calmly state that he simply cannot attend 2 weeks before my due date as we are literally both having the baby together. So seriously, am I the jerk for not letting him attend this wedding? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first off, no, you're not the jerk, but also your in-laws are idiots. They literally said, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have a baby? Yeah, don't worry about that. We're gonna get our daughter married, and my son better be there. Who cares about your baby?" It's like, dude, what are we talking about here? The doctor literally said that he cannot go to this wedding as it is way too much of a gamble. And honestly, I kind of have to agree. And the fact that your extended family is trying to fight you guys on this, while also giving some kind of like, "Oh, well, if you're not going, I'm not going," as if the whole wedding's gonna fall apart just because your husband's not going. Like, that is honestly so crazy to me. Do they not care that you're about to give birth and this really could be like detrimental to your health? Because in my opinion, it really seems like they just don't care about you. So no, you're not the jerk because this literally is what the doctor ordered. And if they can't understand that or appreciate that, then that literally is their problem to deal with because they're the ones that scheduled this wedding date and not you. My roommate screams at me in a way that honestly really insulted me, as he literally chased me into the street just so I would engage in his drama. So I decided to get some petty revenge by quite literally clearing out that apartment top to bottom by taking all my stuff out so that he could not enjoy anything that I had to offer. And I'm honestly so glad that I finally got away from him. Here's what happened. I split an apartment for affordability with an acquaintance and friend who turned out to be a textbook narcissist nepo baby with borderline personality traits. After an especially egregious blow-up where he yelled at me and followed me out of the house into the street screaming insults at me just to try and get me to engage in his drama, I decided I was done trying to maintain peace until the apartment contract ended soon. I then began to move out my stuff from the kitchen, bathroom, and living room. My giant beanbag that he loved to relax in, well, I gave it away. My nightstand by the couch that he had stuff in, I set his stuff on the ground and I gave it away. My decorations and plants that made it cozy, I gave it to a friend. My modem and router for the internet, well, oops, it must have stopped working. I mean, the living room was barren. The toilet paper and paper towels I restocked because it simply wasn't worth fighting over before, well, is now hidden in my room. Even my dishes and plates that he benefited from, I stored them at a friend's house, while also ensuring that the cleaning that I do to keep the shared space from being nasty just basically didn't happen anymore. At this point, I didn't care. His dishes just started piling up and I thought to myself, oh well, not my circus. At this point, I just used the gray rock method. I went as no contact as feasible, and I avoided being home when possible until the lease ended and I could finally move out. And thankfully, I never spoke to him ever again because that guy was a nightmare to deal with. Wow, what a weirdo, seriously. This guy chased you out of the house screaming at you. And I think you're right, just from the sounds of it, it really does seem like he's some kind of like weird narcissist, literally only trying to antagonize you so he can have someone to yell at. That is seriously obnoxious, and I'm glad you got away from them, because I know for a fact I would not be able to live in that kind of situation. Today, I got some petty revenge by returning the trash that someone had illegally dumped in front of my front yard, and it was truly so satisfying to put it right back on their lawn, as it really was gross that they did this in the first place. Here's what happened. For over a decade, I rented a house that had been vacant for a while. It's an old lady's house who had passed away a couple of years ago. Her elderly daughter lived almost an hour away and had been trying to rent it out instead of selling it because the house value was still low because the housing market had not recovered after the 2008 financial crisis yet. Well, I woke up on trash day only to see two large black trash bags at the end of my driveway sitting right next to the garbage can. And I thought to myself, what in the world is going on? I then went outside and decided to rummage through them. Fortunately for me, the dumper was dumb enough to leave a piece of mail inside one of the bags, that had literally their address written right on it. So I looked up the address online, and lo and behold, the address was only a mile and a half away. And since I was unemployed at the time, I had plenty of time to drive over there and give them back their trash. I wrote down the directions on a piece of paper since I didn't have a smartphone at the time, and I wouldn't get one until almost 2016. I then started driving over while thinking about what I was going to say, and I'm honestly not even sure if I thought of anything clever. So I went and I knocked on their door, but there was no answer. So I decided to chuck the bags on their lawn and go back home. A week or two later, there were some additional items like kids' toys and rocking horses next to my bin on trash day, but there were no bags with mail, so I couldn't really do anything about it. But thankfully, after that, there was no more illegal dumping, because that truly was incredibly annoying. Honestly, I can't understand why anyone would ever do this, unless they're seriously trying to hide something. Why would you drive a mile and a half just to throw something away? And especially on a property that probably looks like somebody lives there. There's a car in the driveway, it's not like nobody's there. So the fact that they went out of their way to go to your house and be like, okay, we'll dump the trash here, that's really weird and kind of sketchy as well. But good for you for getting these people sorted out pretty quickly and for figuring out exactly who did this, because this kind of behavior is super gross and I don't blame you for being upset. Am I the jerk for locking my cousin out of my house after they came home at 4 o'clock in the morning after literally drinking all night with their friends on their birthday? Here's what happened. Okay, so my cousin, who we will call James, came to visit me and my husband last weekend for his birthday. We celebrated James's birthday Friday night, and on Saturday, he said he was going to go have dinner with a few of his friends in town. He specifically told me that his plans were to go have dinner with them and come back to my place afterwards to stay in and watch some movies. He left my house at around 4 o'clock p.m. and he texted me at around 7 asking when would be a respectful time to come back, as he was spending the night at my house. Well, I told him that I know it's his birthday and he is with his friends he doesn't get to see often, and he is an adult, so I'm not going to give him a curfew. I just told him to call me and let me know when he was on his way back so we can avoid him ringing the doorbell and waking up my son. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, when bars typically close, I texted him when he was going to get back, but I didn't get a reply. By 3 o'clock in the morning, I figured he was sleeping at his friend's place, so I just went to bed. And before going to bed, I texted him to let him know that in case he was still coming back, there is a spare key that he can use to get in the house. And then I went to bed. Well, at around 4 o'clock in the morning, I woke up to someone ringing our doorbell. This woke up my son and he was scared and crying. My husband and I woke up irritated. I look at the camera and James was outside ringing our doorbell. When I opened the door, James was fuming. He was mad that I had locked him out of the house when I said I would be there to let him in. I asked him why he ignored my text messages, as I told him where the spare key was, and he said his phone died and I should have just given him the keys before he left. Now, James was getting very loud, so I told him that either he can calm down and go to sleep, or he would have to find somewhere else to sleep. So James went to our guest bedroom, he grabbed his things, and he slept in the car. Fast forward, and earlier this week, I was talking to my sister about the situation, and she called me a jerk because I told James that I would wait for him and that I had made a drunk person sleep in their car. Well, I feel justified, but James is also still not talking to me. So seriously, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this really pisses me off because James is super irresponsible. For him to come back at 4 o'clock in the morning, ringing the doorbell as if you're supposed to wait on him hand and foot, that is crazy in my opinion. He is literally inconveniencing everybody in that house and not thinking about anybody except for himself. And it's oh, okay, your phone died, but that's his problem and not yours. Why is the original poster somehow responsible for this guy being irresponsible? And I think the way that you handle this is perfect. This guy seriously was raising his voice at you. That is so uncalled for. I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would have kicked him out as well. I would have said to him, look, you can either calm down or you gotta go. So I really do love the fact that you did that, because that absolutely was uncalled for. And in my opinion, I think James is 100% at fault in this situation. My toxic boyfriend told me that he will block me from going to South Korea if I actually follow through with breaking up with him. But after a lot of back and forth between the two of us, I'm honestly feeling very confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been planning to go to South Korea this year after July, but we have been fighting a lot lately, mostly because I feel like I'm being taken for granted because of money. My boyfriend always asks for things, but he knows I don't have a lot of money. He told me that I have to take care of him and that basically my money is his money. I never ask him for anything except for love, respect, and loyalty. My boyfriend said he felt taken for granted because he loves me, and this is just one of our fights that we have. Well, I tried to break it off recently with him because I don't feel that I'm being appreciated and I am being taken for granted. I'm starting to see who my boyfriend really is, and he is very jealous and very crazy. He always tells me that I am never allowed to leave this relationship relationship. If I choose to leave, then he will come and find me. I cannot hide from him. I am his forever, and no one is allowed to have me. I want to leave this relationship because I am done with him. I am done with this constant fighting. After another one of our fights, and this fight once again went back to being taken for granted, and he was literally yelling at me, telling me that I am not allowed to break off this relationship, that he knows that I'm cheating on him. But no matter how many times I tell him that I'm not cheating, he will say to me, if you're not cheating, then you wouldn't be breaking up with me. But I just told him we are done. He then told me that because I broke his heart and do not want to be with him anymore, he will block me from entering South Korea. He told me he has friends in high places and he will contact the immigration office and put me on some kind of no entry list. And he said he will contact his lawyer as well. He then sent me a message stating that if I want to go to South Korea, then I have to go with him. He says that I have to marry him if I want to enter South Korea. And if I do not marry him, then I am not allowed to enter the country. I have been planning to go to South Korea for a long time before I even met him. And now that I have everything ready to go, I'm worried that my dreams will be stopped by a guy who cannot handle a breakup. So seriously, can he block me from entering the country? I really need some advice on this because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Oh man, this is insane. Like, this guy seriously sounds crazy. He's really trying to say like, oh yeah, you can't go to South Korea unless we get married. You're never breaking up with me. You can't break up with me. If you're breaking up with me, that must mean you're cheating. Like, dude, what is going on right now? This is not normal behavior. This guy is out of his mind, and in my opinion, he sounds kind of dangerous. He sounds like a desperate weirdo, and in my opinion, I would not take this lightly because the way he's acting is like super strange, trying to make it sound like he has ownership over you or something like that. So to state the obvious, no, this idiot can't block you from entering the country, but also like look at the subtext here because the way he's talking is super dangerous. So in my opinion, I think it would be wise to put South Korea on the back burner and maybe say to yourself, listen, I need to get away from this guy first before you ever consider going to South Korea because this guy does not sound like a very safe person in the slightest. And I think it would be safer for you altogether to get away from him and disconnect so that he can no longer negatively affect your life. Am I the jerk for kicking my brother out of my house after he literally came over there only to hook up with another girl? Here's what happened. Okay, so I live with my mom in a 3-bedroom house. My parents are recently separated, so my brother stays with my dad elsewhere in a bigger home. The spare bedroom in our 3-bedroom place also isn't fully furnished yet, and this will be relevant later on. My brother and I are fairly close, but have a strained history because I'm sort of the black sheep of the family. I am more vocal and I tend to call out BS when I see it, and I advocate for others, while my brother is less vocal about issues and tends to try to pacify and people-please situations to ease. In an odd way, this has made us closer over the years, especially during our parents' split. My mom is out of town for a week, and so I'm alone in the house. Last night, my brother and I went out with our respective friend groups and found ourselves at the same event. He was jovial and walked me around the room, proudly introducing me to all of his friends, calling me his mini-me. It was overall a really good night. He left sooner than I did, but came back asking me for the keys to the house. I figured, oh, he probably wants to have a few drinks with his friends, so I just happily gave them to him. But once I got back to the house, my friend and I walked into him with a girl. He was clearly trying to set a vibe and had a mood going. When I asked him if he was staying overnight, he says, yeah, I'm gonna take mom's bed. And I was honestly really appalled. Spending quality time with some stranger in mom's bed? I mean, seriously right now? I should note that I'm African and I come from a conservative country. I'm not bothered by him wanting to hook up, but it's jarring to me that he came into my home right as my mom is gone to then use her room to bed someone else. Like, why couldn't he have just gone to our dad's place or gotten an Airbnb or something like that? I've been going through a pretty tough time too, so all of my other emotions, topped off with the feeling that this was a disrespectful thing to do, came to a head at that moment. I then curtly asked him when he was leaving so I could lock up the house and go to bed. Once upstairs with my friend, I sent him a text stating how hurt and pissed off I was about the situation. He then soon left as I was upstairs ranting to my friend about everything, and I think he heard all of it. Granted, I was drunk, and now that I'm sober, I still feel that his intentions were disrespectful. I do feel really guilty that I may have embarrassed him, and feel that I may have wrecked our relationship for the time being. I apologize for embarrassing him, and I explained why I feel the way that I do. So honestly, am I the jerk in the situation? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. No, I do not think that you're in the wrong at all. Your brother literally doesn't live there. He doesn't stay at your house, and the fact that he was trying to hook up in your mom's bed? Like, seriously, what's going on right now? That is so gross. So no, you're not the jerk for kicking him out because honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be be linked down below in the description.